We have great leadership that we have out that's always been leading us since day one, starting off with Almighty God Allah and the person of Master Prophet Muhammad. As you continue to learn and grow with us, you'll learn a whole lot more about who he is and his relation to us in the world. We have the leadership of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, a man who, just like many of us, when he first came to a meeting, just like we sitting in here, he came to a meeting, he sat in the back of the room, and he listened to a man speak the truth. And once that man spoke the truth and he received it and he honored what was going on and what he heard, he knew that that's where his life was going to take him, or where God would take him, and the rest is history. So the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we believe today, is alive and well, and he is leading the leader that we have in our presence today, who sits in the seat of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We call him as the father of the house. He's not the father, but he sits in the seat of the father. You ever go and have a big chair where your pops would sit in the sports room or the man cave, and you like the little boy, and pops is working, but you sit in his chair, and you put the recliners, pull the handle and your legs go. That's Pop's chair. So the Honorable Mr. FARRAKHAN is sitting in the Most Honorable Elijah's chair, but he's a great leader, teacher, and guide for us in his stead. And we have to refute and defeat falsehood and deception, tricks, technology. We live in a world where this enemy, the slave master's children, Satan, is a real live man, just like we believe God is a real live man. So we don't believe in no hocus pocus, no, okay, the devil made me do it, but you can't see the devil, or the devil got on red tights and he lived under the ground, he got a pitchfork. You know, we got to get rid of the fairy tales, right? Can we get rid of the fairy tales? Are we old enough now that we can try to deal with some reality? So we believe that the devil and Satan is real and God is real. And everything that you see that happens in your life and my life is all cause and effect. Meaning, if I don't go to work, I ain't got no money, right? If I ain't got no money, I don't eat, right? That's a good example of cause and effect, right? If I have a wife that I don't treat right, or if I don't show no love, she probably won't be my wife for too long, right? There's such a thing called divorce, right? So we all about the truth. We all about debunking and getting rid of falsehood in this world today, because that's really the majority of what we see is a lot of lies. Look at, of course, politically speaking, look at the White House. Honorable Mr. Farrakhan say the 45th president, President Donald Trump, as you see, their nation is torn apart. I said their nation. Everybody say their nation is torn apart, because you got the structure of the checks and balances, the executive branch. You have the Republicans, the Democrats, so Nancy Pelosi, and the Democrats, they want him out, and they strong on this side, but Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham and all of the real redneck crackers from the South and Kentucky, what have you, they on the other side, and they battling with each other. And it's pretty, it's a pretty good chance that this won't even be solved before the election day come around. And they've been peddling along with this thing for a long time. But that's their business. But I bring President Donald Trump up to say that the minister was quoted as saying that Donald Trump has suffered from liarrhea. That's right. Liarrhea. Now we all know what that rhymes with, right? We ain't got to go there. But by him lying and tweeting lies day and night, he's really symbolic of this world and this civilization. Yes, or I don't even call it civilization, this savage existence that we are part of. So brothers, what we're trying to do is we're trying to separate now. We're trying to unify, strengthen ourselves, build the necessary institutions that we're going to need. What necessary institutions are those? You're going to need land. You're going to need to eat for ourselves, right? Look at how many cases of cancer and diabetes, and look how many dialysis clinics you see now. 20, 30 years ago, you didn't see that many dialysis clinics. Look at the obesity.
Yes,
look at how many young children are overweight. You know what I mean? Look how many women are overweight, right? So we are taught that this enemy, he's a merchant of death with the food. They play with the food, they chemicalize it, they put hormones in it. So we got a lot to fight against, but guess what? When God is with you, who could be against you? And as long as we with God, we're going to be the majority, we're going to win. And let me just say this as I get ready to close. We in the state of Florida. Florida is in the deep south, the southern tier between Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and a lot of lynchings, a lot of Jim Crow was most pronounced right down here in Florida and this part of the country. You look at the way Florida has this stand your ground law. You see how they write the laws for their people, and they don't mind if George Zimmerman shoot a Trayvon Martin. They'll try to defend that. But if you turn around and let a black person shoot a white person, and see it ain't a whole nother story, right? Am I right? Right. So down here in Florida, we living in really like a jungle where guns are very prevalent. Everybody, I work with a white devil on my job. I work with them. I can work with them, and make my money. And
yes,
I know how to deal with the devil. That's one of the lines Brother Malcolm once had. He said, when you a snake catcher, you ain't afraid of the snake. You deal with the snake. You a snake catcher. The snake don't have no power to make you run away because the snake is poisonous. You get the tools, you do what you got to do. But when I'm working amongst white people, Caucasians, I know them better than they know themselves. So you ain't gonna get too close to me. You ain't gonna really harm me. Yes, and I'm not trying to harm them because we have to be the aggressor. But the white boy that I was working with the other day, all he do is talk about guns. Yeah. He said if somebody do road rage on me, they be looking at a barrel in their face and I'll blow that damn head. That's how they talk. That's how they think. And we know this from their history that they are violent people that love to shed blood. And it's still today. They got their shotguns. We know this was one of the Confederate states. Just on 75, right in the middle there, they still got that big Confederate flag floating over there. Right in the middle there, right? Yeah, right by that turn. A big Confederate flag, man. So the Honorable Mr. Farrakhan teach us that we shouldn't even really make no big deal about no Confederate flag. We call more hell under the damn American flag. We just splitting hairs here. But brothers and sisters, we are in the best place at the best time. That's what I want to get over to you. We have the truth. We have protection. And speaking about guns, we in the nation don't carry no guns. We're forbidden not to carry not even a penknife. You know what I'm saying? And why is that? You think about it. Because we in the nation of Islam, we got protection. We got faith. Yes, look, what kind of faith? Just think about that. What kind of faith do you have to have? You living in the middle of the ghetto, and everybody around you is crazy and savage, but you ain't got no gun. But you go to sleep. You go to sleep like NyQuil every night. You don't need no NyQuil. You go to sleep good. That is a faith. So our faith is what leads the way for us. Our faith is what helps us to understand and to be obedient to Almighty God Allah, and to understanding comes. Because as our brother spoke to us last night in study group, faith is a lot greater than knowledge. Because there's a lot of things, knowledge-wise, we never going to find out. Yes, from the cradle to the grave. We'll die. If we lived 100, 110 years old, there's still millions of things you're not going to know. Sure. But if you have the faith, the knowledge can be tied to that, and we can just carry on. So I'm excited. Welcome, my sister, and thank you all for being here. There's many other places you could have been today. Like we mentioned, December 21st, I had to go to Walmart. I told my wife today, let me go early. I went at 9:30, now that's still too late. The stores are just mad crazy with people shopping and getting in the holiday, as they say, spirit. But all praise due to Allah. We got a certain spirit here that we want to exude, that we want to bring to you with love and understanding, with knowledge and wisdom. And with the wisdom and with the knowledge, once we apply it, we all could be better human beings. Don't you want to do better tomorrow than we are today? Yes, sir. Isn't that what it's all about? It's all about self-improvement.
Yes, sir.
The basis for community development. And once we improve, our community, our family improves, and our community improves. So we're all about trying to build up ourselves through the righteous way, build up our families, and build up our communities. And in doing so, we will be a light that's shining in a dark, dark world, a cold, cold world. That if the days was not shortened for talking about God's elect saved, for his elect saved, we all be killed right now because of our sin. But we all have fallen short of Almighty God Allah, but there's always mercy. And his mercy is one of his predominant characteristics. His beneficence and his mercy. So we all, in other words, we all got to change. The fact that we're sitting here right now, we're going to get something in the way of knowledge and wisdom and understanding that we can use and apply in our life to be better, to have better families, to treat other people better. Because you know what the best religion is that we are taught by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad? Do unto others as others would do unto you. You can say you're a Christian, you can say you're a Jew, you can say you're a Muslim all day long. But if you saying is one thing and being it is another, right? So all praise due to Allah. At this time, I'm going to bring up a wonderful brother who has been serving on this post here as the Honorable Mr. Louis FARRAKHAN's TAMPA representative for 4 years now. And he will attest to it. Time flies when you're having fun. And it's not all fun now. It's a lot of hard work, but he is a brother that is very dutiful. He's very loyal to the Honorable Minister Louis FARRAKHAN. He's very loyal to the believers that he has charge over by the minister's stead. And we thank him for his service, his duty. So without no further delay, let's bring him up to this rostrum with a warm round of applause. Student coordinator, Brother Chad Muhammad.
In the most holy name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, whom we thank for sending to us Moses in the Torah. We thank him for Jesus in the gospel, and we also thank him for Muhammad ibn Abdullah in the Holy Quran. We make no distinctions among none of the prophets, none of the messengers, because we know that they all came with a message from Almighty God, Allah. So that is the beauty of Islam, that we don't have to differentiate, we rather appreciate.
That's right.
Each one that came with different messages during different time periods.
Yes, sir.
So we don't have to pick and choose. We choose all of the above. We choose D, all of the above.
Right.
But as a student in the ministry up under the Nation of Islam, up under the leaderships of the Honorable Minister Louis FARRAKHAN, we must thank Allah for his coming in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, the great Mahdi, who we believe to be as God in the person. Because you know in the scriptures it talks about in the beginning was the Word, and the Word became flesh and dwelled among men. And the Word was God, and the Word was with God. So you see the Word has to be manifest. So we believe that that Word has been manifest in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. And among his coming, traveling 9,000 miles to seek and save that which was lost, which was us as a people.
Yes, sir.
In the scripture, they style us as the lost sheep, the lost children of the house of Israel, the prodigal son. We always talk about something that have gone astray, and then we needed to get back on track. So it takes God himself to help to get us back on track.
That's right.
And when he came, what he did, he dug into the junk pile. He seen some of us that was in our low condition, and he chose one to be a representation in his absence. And then he taught him, a third grade, one that was called Elijah Poole then, whom we know today to be the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. So we thank him for raising up one in our midst.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And in the absence of the two, because a lot of us here today and around never got a chance to meet Master Farad Muhammad or either the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. But we have gotten a chance to see that star pupil,
Yes.
that number one student in the Honorable Minister Louis FARRAKHAN. So in these three names, I would like to greet you. Praise you to Allah. With the greeting words of peace and of paradise. Assalamu alaikum. Once again, we thank everyone for coming out today. Thank you, Student Minister Tyrone, for your introduction. We are blessed as for us to hear a great topic of discussion today that's very important, and that is dealing with our dear brother, Brother Malcolm X. We have here today one of our student ministers that's part of a research team that is headed by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And it's very good because he's going to be dealing with an age-old lie. And his topic of discussion today is Didn't Y'all Kill Malcolm? And it's the myth busting, the propaganda against the Nation of Islam.
Come on.
See, you know, when you deal with a myth is an ideal or a story that people have believed over a period of time. That's not necessarily true, but they have believed in it, and they have believed this age-old lie, and this lie has been regurgitated, stepped on, all throughout time period about the Nation of Islam killing Malcolm X. To the point, I remember, you know, you go out there in the street and you talk to the people about the Nation of Islam, and that's one of the first things they say, well, doesn't y'all kill Malcolm? And to the point I used to get a little irritated about it, and I just said, well, y'all kill Martin. I would tell him. Because if you want to say the nation killed him, then I'm going to say, well, James Earl Ray was a Christian, he grew up in Catholicism, well, y'all killed Martin. And then the same people that would tell you about Malcolm X are not people that even trying to follow him. Right. So this is a very important subject that we're here to learn about today, and we thank God, dear brother, for being here, coming all the way by way of Memphis.
That's right.
Traveling as for us to give us the truth.
Come on now.
Today we will be hurling truth at falsehood.
That's right.
Knock the brains out.
Praise be to God. Come on.
I know back in the days, for some of us that's older and then even recently, there was a movie that came out that was called Ghostbusters.
Yes, sir.
Well, today we're dealing with Mythbusters.
That's right.
So we have one of the Mythbusters here, not a Ghostbuster, but a Mythbuster.
Yes, sir.
But if you remember in the song, it said, if there's something strange in your neighborhood, who are you going to call? And it said Ghostbusters.
Right.
And then it said, if there's something weird and it don't look good, who are you going to call?
That's right.
Ghostbusters. Then in the chorus it said, I ain't afraid of no ghosts. Well, we come with that same principle because it's still something that is strange.
That's right.
And it's still something that is weird, and it's still something that don't look good.
Right.
And it's the lie and the liar that's still going out just telling these lies about that the Nation of Islam is responsible for the death of Malcolm X.
Right.
So this creates friction between those that want to learn about the Nation of Islam and those that love Malcolm. And it makes it seem like we are full of jealousy and envy among us as a people.
Come on.
And then they would even kill their own.
Come on. Brother.
So the day with our dear brother is very important because he's going to come with records of showing documentation and information.
Facts.
This is not going to be something that is based upon what I feel.
No, facts.
We're going to do historical accounts, inshallah.
Right.
We're going to deal with documentation. We're going to deal with research.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Where he went in on it and learned about it. Our dear brother is more than qualified and well capable of giving us the information as needed.
Yes,
He is the author of several books, I believe about 10. He is part of a research team by way of the Honorable Minister I'm talking, I think Google at Tune In. Google said Malcolm X or something like that, and it just started talking to me.
Yeah, Google got it.
So we know as the FBI and the Secret Service, they have tuned in during the time of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Go ahead, bro.
Don't mistake that they might not be tuning in right now.
That's okay.
But we want to give them the information
Come on,
too.
get them straight.
We want the whole world to know. We want to clear up this misconception, this flood of propaganda that has been given, and that is for us trying to desecrate our name in the Nation of Islam. Because as you see, for those that came in today, we are peaceful people. We're not here to disturb your spirit. We're here to give you the truth. And the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And we have our dear brother that's part of this research team that gathered information. We have our dear brother that I say that is an author and have compiled many books, and by the end of the day, inshallah, by God's will, we'll be able to purchase some of these books. So we can take his words and expression, and we can get a piece of his mind, and we can bring that home with us to further our studies. The beauty about what's going on today is, too, that when he finished, you just don't have to take this for face value. Right. Because you might have heard something different. You might have heard, and I know that it was the nation that killed him. You might feel like that. But guess what? You can voice your questions by God's will at the end. So he would take on questions and answers, any questions that you have. That's the beauty of this.
Right. That's right.
That's the beauty, because a lot of times you can go to meetings and you don't get a chance as far as to ask questions. Right. But by God's will, you get a chance to ask our dear brother anything that's on your mind concerning the topic today. So without further ado, we want to welcome and bring to the podium a hard worker in the cause of Islam, our dear brother that's part of the research team. Let us receive him, because we're going to have a double feature. It's not just today, but he will be back tomorrow. So let us welcome him, student minister, Brother DEMETRIC
It's actually not on yet.
Praise be to him.
In the name of Allah, to beneficent and merciful, I bear witness that there is no God except Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. I greet you all in the greeting words of peace of Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.
Beloved brothers and sisters, allow me to first of all thank Almighty God Allah for his precious and his merciful intervention into our affairs in the person of the great Mahdi, Master Farrakhan Muhammad. We thank him for his coming, and we thank him for raising from among us his messenger Messiah to us, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, and we thank them both for our big brother and friend, he who really is an example for us of how to really be a servant of God. And that man of whom I speak really is so much more than that, but we'll talk more about that tomorrow. His identity in terms of the scriptures. But I am so thankful and grateful to Allah for not only the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but for also the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And allow me to again thank Brother Student Minister Chad, and thank the believers, the brothers and sisters here in the Tampa and the Central Florida area for the privilege and the opportunity to be here with you today as we travel to share the good that we have been taught with those who believe, as well as for those who are coming into faith and our community. We bear witness, we maintain forthrightly that what is contained within the message of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Minister Farrakhan is not only good for the Muslims.
Come on now.
It is good for all of our people.
That's right.
It is good for the Latino community, the indigenous community.
Yes, sir.
It is good for all of humanity.
Yes, sir.
And unfortunately, lies and falsehood, myths and propaganda interfere with the general public having a clear head and mind, a clear ear, a clear path to hear this life-changing and life-transforming message for themselves, such that they might make a decision as to whether or not they want to embrace it, accept it, and adopt it for their life. So then we think that it's a part of our duty and our job then to help remove those obstacles, to relieve the people of the impediments of being able to hear this message that we bear witness is the message from Almighty God Allah himself.
Yes, sir.
So as Brother Student Minister Chad was introducing us, he was introducing also the subject that we have before us today. And it is a subject that has been framed based upon what we all have heard as a question that is out there, that circulates. And I have found that, especially among the youth, this is a very strong myth, that it was the Nation of Islam that killed Malcolm X. And so we want to go into this myth today, and we're going to take our time and parse it apart and share facts. We have no interest in obfuscating or hiding the truth.
That's right.
Teach, brother.
We are interested in the facts. However, we have found that with respect to this particular subject, so much misinformation, disinformation surrounds this subject. It's a messy subject. It's a murky subject. You know, they used to have a saying in the street life years ago, you know, when they throw certain stuff into the game, some of y'all old timers understand what I'm referring to. But the enemy have certainly thrown a lot into this to muddy it up, to dirty it up, and to create dissension and disunity in our community. I was reading once upon a time in some of the counterintelligence memos written by J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI that one of their objectives was to prevent black unity. They consider black unity to be an enemy to the status quo in America.
Ooh, that's heavy. That's heavy.
And so the subject of the assassination of Malcolm X is one of those issues around which it's difficult for us to have unity.
Teach, brother.
This is a wound in our community. And that's the reason why, as we deal with it and discuss it, I, as a student of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, have to always, and I'm always interested in ensuring that we present the right tone, the right spirit, that we reflect his heart and his mind.
That's
beautiful, brother.
Because our interest is to heal the wounds that exist among our people.
This is true.
And so we have to speak honestly about the role of all parties involved with the motive to bring about a healing to a painful episode in black history.
Make it plain.
We were up very late last night working because we were drafting a article for the upcoming edition of the Final Call newspaper to talk about the Epix TV program called The Godfather of Harlem. That is the latest iteration of the Malcolm X controversy.
That's right.
And so we were talking about in our piece this phenomenon that we're noticing of the deliberate corruption of black history. That we see this TV series as an element or a part of. Using the guise of creative license and artistic expression. Luminaries and legends from the black community are being slandered and their histories are being altered, such that the noble reputation of men like Adam Clayton Powell and Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X may be altered for many years to come in terms of the eyes of the public.
Teacher, man.
As brother said, I'm a researcher and I am a lecturer, a student minister, and an author, but I bear witness and I understand that there's a great mass of people who will come to a lecture and read a book, but there may be a larger mass of people who like to get their history through entertainment.
Ooh, you're teaching, man.
And I just want to say, as a community of people, we have to abandon the habit of thinking we can learn history through entertainment.
Teaching, man.
Those who create movies and films are not doing it with an educational purpose in mind. Fact about it, there's a campaign to deliberately use the tools of the entertainment industry as weapons against the awakening, particularly of young people.
Right.
In the immediate aftermath of the murder of Mike Brown and Trayvon Martin and Eric Garner, you begin to see Black and Latino and indigenous youths go out into the streets of America to protest police brutality against people of color.
Come on, brother.
Well, we have been able to see in history whenever this happens, whenever the people begin to awaken, to assert themselves, to challenge the powers that be, the powers that be then hustle to get ahead of the growing, awakening masses to redirect them in the opposite direction of what they really are pursuing.
That's right.
I heard our beloved minister and great sister, student minister Ava Muhammad, put it like this one time, and it was just so profound to me. I always reflect upon it. She said that the white man has developed the ability to become the leader of his own opposition. So he sees his opposition burgeoning on the horizon.
Come on, brother Demetri.
And he goes out, infiltrates it, rises through its ranks. So before the dust settles and the smoke clears, the oppressor has literally become the head of the oppressed. And we wonder why we never, in spite of all of our struggle for liberation and justice, we never achieve it.
Come on, brother.
As if the struggle is designed to be perpetual. No, the struggle is not designed to be perpetual or forever. The struggle is designed to struggle until victory comes.
Go ahead, go ahead.
That's the point.
Yes, sir. I just want to make sure that we understand before we get into this, and I pray that you'll be patient with us today, because I want to share information, and I know we are, I believe, live for a Facebook audience, and maybe we can check and make sure that the video and the audio is good so that the people can see us properly and hear us properly, because we notice that there is a significant interest in this subject, and we want to present the information so that even if you're not in the Tampa Bay area today, you can be with us via the stream.
There you go.
That's right.
So let's start out this presentation just with a note or two on propaganda. Propaganda, what we mean by that is when lies become a part of a campaign designed for character assassination. You know, they say that in war, the first casualty is truth. Because before soldiers go in, before armies put boots on the ground, they begin by trying to reshape the thinking of the people.
That's right.
They try to alter opinions. As a great Jewish thinker called Noam Chomsky, who wrote a book called Manufacturing Consent.
It's teaching.
You know, using language from the Constitution that says governments derive their authority to rule based upon the consent of those that they govern.
That's right.
So he's talking about how now in the modern era, that consent is being manufactured. And we can bear witness.
That's right, brother.
They've been talking on the news the last few days about Afghanistan being the longest war America has ever been in. Did they ever come and ask your consent to go and prosecute a war in Afghanistan?
No, sir.
They never come and ask our consent, but they do all these things around the world in our name.
That's right. That's right.
And so Mr. Chomsky talks about the use of propaganda to manufacture consent. Propaganda has been used against the Nation of Islam. The scripture says, "Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they will become even more numerous. And if war breaks out, we'll join our enemies, fight against us, and leave the country." Now, this is the scripture. Now, I said that, you know, as much as I'm a researcher into histories, I'm also a man of faith.
Yes, sir.
I'm also a student of the ministry, and I have found that, you know, as a student of Minister Farrakhan, the prophecies of Bible and Quran really do foretell the day and the time in which we live. And they present for us a lens, a proper lens, through which to view the events and ongoings of our day and time.
Yes, sir.
So Exodus 1 and 10 Gill, in his exposition and the explanation of this verse, he says to let us deal wisely with the means to form some wise schemes, take crafty methods to weaken them and diminish them gradually, not with the open force of arms, but in a more private and in a more secret manner. Now Pharaoh's quote, he was looking at the slaves, the children of Israel. They were in bondage to him. He was looking upon them and he saw that they were growing, meaning they were making babies. Their population was growing, while he and the Egyptians, their population was contracted.
Right.
Now this is analogous to what you may have read in Dr. Frances Cress Welsing's book, The ISIS Papers, where she talks about the fear of white genetic annihilation.
Right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
In other words, for a long period of time in America, when they looked at the population growth, see, because they study and analyze trends, we were talking about last night.
That's right.
And we as a people have to become those who study and analyze trends.
Yes, we do.
Yes,
we do.
When we join the Nation of Islam, we're given a document titled Actual Facts. And it gives us data about the earth and about the people of the earth to teach us a lesson that if you want to grow and evolve into a state of godhood, you have to be able to study and analyze trends such that you don't become a reactionary to events and circumstances, but you become a predictor and a dictator and a creator of beneficial events and circumstances for you and your people.
Right.
But our enemy has long looked upon the black community and the Latino community and even the Asian and the poor white community and say among those who are outside of the elite,
Right.
they are very fertile. And so, since they knew this about us and we didn't know this about ourselves, they began to promote family planning trends among us, contraception and birth control and abortion. While in affluent communities, family planning conversations revolve around adoption, fertility treatment.
Right.
So that's the context of this verse. But we place emphasis on the idea that there is shrewdness, the evil use of wisdom by an oppressor upon a class of the oppressed. This is a very important foundational point. Because to talk and to have presentations like this, people say, well, there go the Muslims again with their conspiracy theories.
Yeah, that's what they say. Come on.
But America, correct me if I'm wrong, has always been what they call a Judeo-Christian society.
Right.
Meaning then that fundamental ideas and concepts for how this society is set up have been extracted from the scripture of Jews and Christians, i.e. the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament.
Teacher.
So I say I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I just believe in the Bible.
Go ahead.
I believe in the Quran.
Right.
And in both these powerful books of scripture, the wicked rulers conspired against the deliverance and the liberation of those whom they ruled over and oppressed.
Go ahead, brother.
Some people might be surprised to find out that even the American military literally has manuals and documents about creating psychological operations.
Go ahead, into the mind.
See, didn't y'all kill Malcolm? That is a reaction to a psychological operation.
Go ahead.
Make the black community to believe that the Nation of Islam killed Malcolm X. So that black folk won't continue to go into the Nation of Islam because we don't like the Nation of Islam. They represent a threat to the status quo in America.
Right.
They represent the fulfillment of biblical prophecies.
Come on.
That one day the enslaved would rise. One day the tail would become the head. One day the slave would become the master and the master would become the slave.
No, they don't want that. Come on.
the powerful in this country recognize that the Nation of Islam is the fulfillment of these prophecies.
Ooh, come on.
So you come to find out, those of you who have studied J. Edgar Hoover's counterintelligence program, he devoted the greatest amount of the Bureau's resources at the sabotage of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam.
Wow. Wow.
It makes you think that the Panthers were their primary target. And we're going to talk about the Panthers and what they did to destroy the Panthers. But any credible scholar will tell you that man hours, finances, information and intelligence gathering, the lion's share of that under J. Edgar Hoover was devoted to one primary man and one primary group that he feared more than anything, and that was that little man.
That's right.
That's a really, really big man.
The
most honorable Elijah Muhammad. As a political cartoon that appeared in the back of Esquire magazine. And in the political cartoon, you had cartoon images of leaders of the world. And situated among them was a cartoon image of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And the words coming from the French leader, President Charles de Gaulle, pointing at little Elijah. He said, if it was not for this man, we would have a glorious future.
Go ahead.
Now, this is the reason why Malcolm was important to them. Malcolm essentially ends up being collateral damage in the American government's effort to destroy Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam. When you're fighting an enemy and an adversary, you don't go directly to the main man. You try to take out his top general, his best soldier, all that surrounds him, that gives him some strength and success.
Go ahead, brother.
True, brother.
That's real, brother.
So they say that the purpose of psychological operations. Think about this now. These are words being proffered by the military of the United States.
Oh, military.
The corruption of human reason. The dimming of the human intellect. And the disintegration of the moral and spiritual life of one nation by the influence of the will of another is accomplished.
That's heavy. That's heavy. That's heavy.
And as I see people comment on this subject, I said, my God, this has to be evidence of the corruption of human reason. The dimming of human intellect. Where you have bought into a popular narrative so thoroughly that you literally, your mind literally becomes impervious to facts. Let's look at the movie. Spike Lee's movie, but first I want to just say a word about Godfather of Harlem.
Come on, brother. Come on. Take us on a journey.
Because
Take us on a journey.
Godfather of Harlem, everybody's watching it.
It's new. It's real.
Even though they put on the screen that this is fiction.
That's right. At the beginning.
But you know what that's analogous to?
Go ahead.
You know, in the world of the news media, right? If they lie on you, it'll be in large print on page 1. Now, if they find out or if you prove that they lied on you, they will print a retraction in small print on the back page that nobody reads.
That's right.
But everybody read the lie they told about you on the front page. So that's what that really amounts to. None of those who are watching this for entertainment is reading the caveat that they put at the beginning.
That's right.
It's a disclaimer.
That's right.
However, they already know and they're counting on what Minister Farrakhan aptly described years ago in his book, A Torchlight for America, the deliberate dumbing down of the American people.
Deliberate. Go ahead.
They know that the masses aren't sophisticated enough to watch a dramatic, fictionalized account about Malcolm X and Bumpy Johnson and be able to separate the fiction from the fact. Most haven't even read the fact. But they know that for many in their audience, they are introducing them to these characters for the first time. Because while they are corrupting black history on the television and the movie screen, they're in the classroom. Making sure that your sons and my sons and your daughters and my daughters
teach, brother,
get a watered down, whitewashed, and sanitized version of very critical elements of black history, namely the slave trade. Do you know, brothers and sisters, that textbook manufacturers like McGraw-Hill and others now describe that black people came to America to be employed as agricultural workers?
Oh, stop it. Stop it.
As though we were in Africa. On monster.com or indeed.com. So you know what? They got some, they got some, they're hiring in America. We're going to work on some plantations.
Firm handshake.
And as ridiculous as that is,
come on, brother,
it should be the cause of a moral outrage among us. Because it means that our babies now, their mind and their thinking will never be such that they understand the horror of what really was the Black Holocaust.
That's
right. The transatlantic slave trade is the Black Holocaust. That's now being sanitized in classrooms. So they're not teaching you and my children about the true value of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. They're not even teaching them of the true value of Malcolm X or Adam Clayton Powell.
Listen.
But Bumpy's wife wrote a book called Our Godfather. And she makes it known that, you know, Bumpy and Malcolm met near the end of Malcolm's life. They were not friends and homies that ran the streets together and fought Italian mobsters.
Fiction.
She says in 1965, it was Bumpy who went around to all of the businesses, sporting men, and the East Side Italians to pay for the funeral of a man whom he just met, but he truly admired. I'm going to say that again. That he had just met. He didn't say that a man that they used to run the streets together. They was boys, they was homies.
Listen.
She goes on to say, Bumpy was in prison in 1943 when this man, who then called himself Detroit Red, moved to Harlem. Red was a fast talker who sported flashy zoot suits, flaming red conked hair, and ran numbers for West Indian Archie. By the time Bumpy got out of Dannemora prison in 1947, Detroit Red had fled Harlem for Boston. But when Bumpy came out of federal prison in 1963, the two finally met. Bumpy was impressed with Malcolm, and one of those who supported Malcolm's new organization after he left the Nation of Islam in 1964. When he was assassinated while giving a lecture at the Audubon Ballroom in 1965, Bumpy was devastated. After delivering the funeral money he raised along with his own contribution to Malcolm's widow, Betty Shabazz, he bitterly told Junie, I offered him protection, and he turned it down. Said he didn't want men with guns around him because it would be like he was trying to provoke something. He should have listened to me. Now that's the relationship of Malcolm X and Bumpy Johnson. See, so when a house has a foundation that's weak and flawed, once you remove the foundation, you bring the whole house down.
That's right.
So it's on this premise that they now go forth and create lies about this relationship. Now they're involving the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the Nation of Islam, and it's just complete falsehood. It's not meant for entertainment. It's not meant for real entertainment. It's a part of a psychological operation. Because the youth are becoming awakened. And you know, part of the organic nature of things is that there is a reason why children have parents. The reason why you have a mother and a father. I have a mother and a father. It's not just because these are people who gave us our physical start in life.
Teach.
But we are also supposed to receive an inheritance of their knowledge, their experience, their guidance, and their expertise.
Yes, that's good teaching.
You know, one of the tragedies of a cemetery, it's not so much of all of the buried remains, the physical remains of great men and women,
Teach, brother.
but it is the wisdom
Yes,
and
that's
knowledge
very understood.
that they took to the grave.
Heavy.
That had they been able to take a young sister or a young brother and bring them to their foot,
Right.
they could have poured the wisdom that's in their mind into the young body of a young man or woman, such that now that wisdom is able to live and express itself on into the future. That's the way God set it up, brothers and sisters. This is the reason why the Old Testament closes with an ominous picture and a warning. Said that I'm going to send you a man called Elijah.
Malachi.
What will Elijah's job be?
Good point.
Turn the hearts of the fathers to the hearts of the children.
Right.
Turn the hearts of the children
Right.
to the hearts of the father. Otherwise, God will smite the earth with a curse. In other words, you need the elders and the youth together.
Yes, sir.
Not at odds with each other.
Close the gap.
But through these various forms of entertainment,
Yes,
the
yes.
young generations are being made to look at those that came before them with a jaundiced eye.
Yes.
Right,
Sick.
right.
Yes.
Such that they don't think now, you watching the Godfather of Hollywood. You're not going to walk away from that and think that there's anything you can learn from Elijah Muhammad. You're not going to walk away from that and think that you can learn anything from Adam Clayton Powell.
Come on, that's right.
And in spite of anything that was in his personal life, he was a man that fought hard for our people.
That's right.
He was a strong brother in politics.
Right.
You may watch this and not think that there's anything you can learn from Brother Malcolm,
Teach.
except to walk away from that which was your foundation in life. See, the greatness of Malcolm X, we have to always maintain.
Right, right.
Yes, sir.
The best part of
You know, I use this analogy sometimes. If you received your paycheck and they took 90% of it and gave you 10% of it,
Yes.
would you rejoice in the 10% after you had lost the 90% of what you worked for and what you earned? It sounds even foolish to suggest.
Right, right. Be happy with it.
But through the psychological manipulation that's being imposed on us,
Right.
many so-called Malcolmites do exactly that.
Go ahead. Teach.
The 90% of Malcolm is 1952 through 1964. While he was a minister of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad
Go ahead.
and strong soldier in the Nation of Islam.
Yes, sir.
That's Malcolm X.
That's right.
He officially leaves March of 1964 and is assassinated February of 1965. But the part that those who say they love Malcolm, they love that part. Because you know why? Because he was, as you know how a lot of people say, I don't follow no man. You know, I just want to say, you know, very candid.
Go ahead, brother.
You sound like a goddamn fool.
Fool, man.
Say that you don't follow no man.
What is you gonna follow? Follow a horse?
Number one, you sound like a fool because everything about you suggests that you are following some man,
Right.
some men, just the wrong man or the wrong men.
Right.
Hey, follow.
Secondarily, there's no knowledge or wisdom
Come on.
that you and I are the originators of.
Teach.
Teach him, brother.
Every thought as they say, there's no such thing as an original thought. Whatever you know, whatever you believe, whatever your principles or virtues are, they were passed down to you in some form from someone else.
Yes, yes.
No, what is really being expressed when people say, I don't follow no man, is that I don't want to be disciplined.
Ooh, that's what they say.
I don't want to be regimented.
Ooh.
I don't want to be a part of any kind of structure.
Come on, keyword.
I want to be able to go where I want to go, do what I want to do, even if what I want to do is self-destructive. Even if what I want to do is immoral, illegal, or unethical. I want to be able to do that, so you know what? I don't follow no man. And under the guise of this so-called concept of rugged individualism, you think that you are virtuous because you say to yourself, I don't follow no man. You sound like a jackass.
You're right, that's right. That's right.
Most of those who say that are still wearing their slave master's name.
Yes.
Talking about you don't follow no man.
Go ahead. Minister, go ahead. Good God.
I'm sorry, brother.
No.
Let's fly. Let's fly.
That's a passion.
This is a subject I'm passionate about.
Teach hard.
Not because of the subject, but because of the implications of allowing the youth, especially the youth, to labor under these false ideas and misrepresentations of black history. Do you know that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that above all our studies, history exists, and it is best qualified to reward our researchers. It develops the springs and motives of human actions, discusses the circumstances that act on the destinies of human beings.
Teach, brother, teach.
History is important.
Very important.
If you want to understand today, you got to know what happened yesterday.
Yesterday.
Come on, brother.
You said about trend.
If you want to be able to determine your future, you need to understand what happened yesterday. Because there's something about, the earth is round. And we learned we were growing up in the streets, right? What goes around, comes right back around. Because the earth is round.
Yes, sir.
That's why they say, as I heard a wise man say one, that's the reason why you should do good. Because the good that you send into the lives of others, since the earth is round and is spinning, that good will ultimately come right back around into your own life.
Good teacher.
Again, don't get your history from entertainment.
Come on, that's a new.
If you want your history, read books, listen to qualified speakers speak and teach. Get your history from credible sources. Don't get your history from entertainment. This is Spike Lee talking about his movie.
Come on now.
He's being interviewed by Professor Henry Louis Gates.
Oh,
He says, and in those cases where we had to change names, change events, or make 3 or 4 characters into one, I don't think that's distorting the Malcolm story. But that's the textbook definition of distorting something.
That's right.
I mean, Mr. Lee, that's what distortion is denotated as.
I don't think.
Words have a denotation and a connotation. The denotation is the dictionary meaning of a word. The connotation is what people associate that meaning to be in common use of language. Distortion is when you change to make something that is not be what it actually is.
Change 3 or 4 characters.
So a lot of people watch the movie and they, talking about, yeah, man, remember when the brother Baines and he brought Malcolm Islam when Malcolm was in prison? Baines was a fictional character. He was a cost-saving measure by Mr. Lee. Warner Brothers, a Jewish company.
Yes.
You wonder why would a Jewish company invest into the life of a man that Jewish leaders proclaimed was a black anti-Semite. And here's the news flash. They deemed Malcolm more anti-Semitic after he left the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Wow.
They literally began to blame Malcolm's message, talking about the economic exploitation of black people in Harlem, where he identified Jewish merchants who would make
untold sums of money in the daytime and then drive out to the suburbs at nighttime, building powerful communities with the wealth of the poor who lived in Harlem.
Right.
They actually blamed Malcolm for certain riots that took place in the summer of 1964. They said that they feared that Malcolm was going to lead an armed revolt against the Jewish merchants in Harlem.
Wow.
We document this in our forthcoming work on this subject, just so you can see it. But they gave Spike Lee $32 million. Some say $34 million, but they gave him a lot of money.
Yeah.
Suffice to do a movie. Right. How about a man they hated and loathed?
Ooh, think about that. Think over that.
And so Spike, his vision, he needed more money. That wasn't enough. I think he ended up needing $60 million. He got maybe 18 from people like Bill Cosby, Michael Jordan, Oprah, etc. But he's having to make all of these amalgams. So Baines essentially becomes an inmate called Bembry that Malcolm writes about in his autobiography, who was a really intelligent inmate. He used to read books in the dictionary, and Malcolm was impressed by him. Then in another place, Baines is supposed to be Reginald.
That's right.
Malcolm's blood brother.
That's right.
Who was the first who introduced Malcolm to Islam.
Right.
What many people don't know or have an appreciation for is that Malcolm's blood brothers and sisters, they came into the Nation of Islam before him. I think he may have been instrumental in converting his half-sister Ella, who lived in Boston.
Yes, sir.
But they were the ones who were fishing in their little brother Malcolm.
That's good information.
So Baines is part Bembry, part Reginald, then he's part Minister James Shabazz, legendary son of thunder of Temple number 25.
That's right.
Oh, you teaching, brother?
Right.
So, but if you ain't read no history, you don't know that in this one character, Spike Lee has squished together 3 literal people from history.
Ooh.
That's why you can't get your history from your entertainment.
Good point.
You made that point, brother.
You have to realize, as Mr. Lee said, we ain't making a documentary. These ain't my words. These are the words of Spike Lee in an interview about his movie with Professor Henry Louis Gates.
Go ahead, brother.
He said you have to realize we're not making a documentary. We're making a drama. Ella Collins is not in the film. Ella paid for Malcolm's Hajj to Mecca. That was his older sister, who was successful in real estate in Boston. I had visited her home that is now being turned into a historical site in Boston. His big sister, Ella Collins.
Teaching, brother.
She's not even in the movie.
Right, not even.
Then Lee says Farrakhan is not in the film. Farrakhan at that time, which his name was actually Minister Louis X.
Right.
Have to emphasize that, because when you hear these jackasses on YouTube talking about, Farrakhan was jealous of him and such, so he told Farrakhan this. Wait a minute. He wasn't even Farrakhan at that time.
Teaching.
So it shows that your real mindset is you want to associate Minister Farrakhan, the man that he is today, and his success.
Yes.
You want to say that his success is at the expense of Malcolm's death.
Go ahead. That's what we're trying to say.
As though the minister was somewhere pining for Malcolm's position.
That's what
The minister didn't want Malcolm's position.
No, sir.
He didn't want the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's position.
That's right.
He was a man that sincerely loved both men.
That's right.
I don't know if you've ever been through a divorce, but a divorce is hell on children.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
The departure of Malcolm X from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was like a spiritual divorce. And sometimes children are forced in those circumstances to go with mom or dad. They don't want to. But if one party appears to be an aggressor against the other party, you find the children then siding with the one that is being aggressed upon. And that's what you had in those that spoke out against Brother Malcolm. They saw themselves as defending a man, follow me now, a man who literally had a maternal function in the life of the believers of the nation.
That's right. That's
I want you to appreciate what I'm saying.
Yes,
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 sir.
man.
Because in the hood, when I was growing up, if you talk about my mama goes up fighting words.
That's right.
That's where I come from.
Right, we gotta throw down.
That's right.
Mama, off limit.
That's right. That's right. That's the
And that's
fact.
because in our experience as a people,
Throw down.
the only expression of love many of us ever
That's
receive
right. Teach me nothing.
is our mother's love.
That's
Teaching, man.
That's right.
Mother's love has been said to be the closest thing to the love of God.
That's right. Yes, sir.
God's love is described in the New Testament Greek using the term agape, unconditional love. And when we came into the nation, we found love. See, people misunderstand sometimes. They look at the Muslims and say, man, they look courageous. They look bold and tough. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But you may misunderstand the root that produces that.
Go ahead.
Good teaching.
And I'm kind of getting into my subject for tomorrow. So I won't go too far.
Segue.
But that's born of love.
Yes, yes.
Love produces this that you see.
I love it.
Men who would be willing to put their life in between another man and an assassin's bullet.
You teach it, brother. Teach hard.
That I would prefer my brother's life to my own.
Teach hard, brother.
Says that I wouldn't mind my blood being shed so that he could live and continue to benefit my people.
Come on, man. I got to stand
That's
up.
love.
Man.
It's not bravado.
Man. I wish I could.
That's the reason why you can never be successful against the nation of Islam.
That's right.
Go ahead.
Those that walk around and hold guns and talk you'll never be successful against the nation.
Teach it.
Because we are those who are like are described in the Quran,
Teach, black man.
who prefer the life of Allah's messenger to our own life.
That's right.
Ooh, teach it, brother.
There's nobody that's carrying a 9mm or some type of gun.
Yeah, no problem.
That's their courage.
Right.
That's their strength.
Yeah. Got
In
my-
their piece of steel.
Yeah. I got my heat. Yeah.
You will never be successful against the people who don't mind dying for what they believe.
Go ahead, brother.
That's
Right.
right.
And what I'm saying is that man Elijah Muhammad,
Ooh, speak on him.
he gave to his followers
Yes.
an unconditional love.
Yes, sir.
So he was like, he's a man, but again, I ain't trying to advocate for LGBTQ now.
Come on,
We
brother.
love our brothers and sisters who are in that lifestyle. We don't agree with that lifestyle. But what I'm saying is that, see, the Quran in the 7th surah, and pardon me for going into the scripture, just a moment, I'm coming back, but this is important.
Yes, sir.
It refers to the prophet as an Ummi prophet in Arabic. Now, Ummi means someone that is without formal education. Don't mean they dumb or stupid. You grew up in my community with the wisest of the people were oftentimes the one that had the least amount of formal education.
You teaching, man.
That's
You
right.
teaching.
That's right.
You
Some of us
teaching.
today got all kinds of degrees.
Yes. The morning.
But we still had a quality of life that grandma and grandpa had.
No,
That's
They was married for 40 years, bought home, raised children, raised grandchildren, had a savings account. They didn't, a lot of them didn't have no high school diploma.
Go ahead, brother.
You and I walking around with multiple degrees, living in an apartment.
Right.
So, formal education ain't always what it's cracked up to be. But the word in Arabic means mother.
Teach.
Man, you going hard, brother.
So this is a man of God
Yes.
who gives to the believers in God maternal love.
I don't know.
I love it.
In a book we're preparing, we talk about how when Malcolm would come to Chicago, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad would give him the keys to his car. I want you to just think about that. He was loved so much by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who's not viewing him as an adversary, not viewing him as a threat like they want you to believe in God, Father, power. But this is my son.
That's right.
And he had been a man longing for a helper.
That's right.
Like Moses cried out to Allah God in the Quran, send me a helper, give me an aider in my brother Aaron. Well, how is the man that asks God for help, then when God sent him the help, become jealous of the help? You don't read that in the scriptures. The fact about it, there is an episode in the life of Moses and Joshua that comes to mind. Certain point, Minister Chad, Moses had anointed 70 elders among the children of Israel. And God's spirit came upon them such that they prophesied. And two of them, the Bible says, Eldad and Medad, they prophesied in the temple, and Joshua got a little jealous.
Ooh, teach on history.
He told Moses, you need to stop them from that prophesying.
Right.
He said, Joshua, what are you jealous for? It's Moses. He said, I wish that God would pour out his spirit of prophecy on all of my people.
That's right.
That they might help me in the governance of this nation of Israel.
Come on.
See, that's the spirit of the servant of God.
Yes, sir.
Now, don't realize Muhammad is not some jealous old man seeing a young man rise in stature. Allah had already promised him help.
Go ahead.
He was looking for help.
Go ahead.
He called out for it publicly in his 1954 Savior's Day address. Just as Minister Farrakhan was coming into the nation, as Malcolm had just previously joined the nation, but neither of them had become the men they would ultimately become.
Right.
So Elijah said, I need help.
That's right.
Come on.
Oh, he ain't jealous of his help.
Yes, sir.
At one point, Malcolm wrote him a letter from prison. And Malcolm had made a cedar chest and wood shop in prison. And Malcolm says, if you all sell this, you could have the money and maybe you could send it to me and I'll have a little something to help me when I come out of prison. So what did Mr. Muhammad do? He brought Malcolm's letter out to the temple, read it to the believers, and showed them the chest that this brother had made in the prison wood shop. To try to get help and support for him. See, this is the stuff you're not going to learn on FM. People who loved each other.
Yes.
There was a family to each other.
Yes.
But that our own government worked to separate and create factions with the hope that they would fight each other and do harm to each other. And when that didn't happen, the government stepped in and said, well, we'll do it.
We'll take care. Come on.
Right. Take it to their own hand.
Got to move and do it myself. Come on, Thano.
Come on, Brother DEMETRIC.
So,
Go ahead, brother. You on it, brother. Take your time. Take your time. We ain't got no way to go. I ain't got no. Come on.
Hey,
this
go
is
ahead,
what
brother.
Spike Lee says of Warner Brothers. He said, I know for sure. Now, there's a whole picture of Warner Brothers.
Ooh, Warner Brothers.
Don't look like no Malcolmites in that
Wait,
picture.
Walt Disney up there.
I don't see nobody with no red, black, and green on in that picture. Nobody with no afros on in that picture. No medallions, anything on in that picture. Why are they interested in putting on? Yeah, they want to make money, obviously.
Right.
But see, when you already got money, you don't do movies just to make money.
That's right. That's right. That's
Movies
right.
ain't just movies.
No, you teach it, man. You teach it.
Songs ain't just songs.
That's real.
Warner Brother.
Art has historically been a vehicle for the delivery of messages and ideas. And look at what Spike said. He said, I know for sure Warner Brothers is trying to stress the Malcolm after Mecca when he stopped calling white folk blue-eyed devils. I think over that. They want to stress that again. The 90% of Malcolm, 52 to 64, that's Malcolm. That's 90% of it.
That's right. That's right.
The little small, and it's not even 10% because it wasn't even a year.
Right.
They want to stress that part.
That part, When he went to
Minimize the real man that we all know and love.
Teach it.
So So we say Malcolm was sanitized for a reintroduction.
Well put, brother.
What do we mean by that? He was hated by the same people who now celebrate him when he was alive.
Mm-hmm.
You know how we say, give me my flowers while I'm still alive?
Mm-hmm. That's what he did.
Because sometimes there is really a form of, necromancy or necrophilia.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The romanticizing of the dead. And many of these who are great leaders, revolutionary leaders, are romanticized after death because guess what? Now they're safe.
Come on.
Makes sense. It makes sense.
And imagine you go to your friend's house and there's a big bad dog. You don't like the dog, you're afraid of the dog. But if the dog is asleep, you go there and pet the dog. He's safe now. He can't bite me. That's how they do our leaders. They roll them out into the public after they're deceased. Because in death, they are safe, considered safe by the ruling class.
Not a threat.
Vladimir Lenin put it like this, and it's a powerful quote.
In Russia.
He said, what in the course of history has happened repeatedly to the theories of revolutionary thinkers and leaders of oppressed classes fighting for emancipation? During the lifetime of great revolutionaries, the oppressing classes constantly hounded them, received their theories with the most savage malice, the most furious hatred, and the most unscrupulous campaigns of lies, i.e. propaganda and slander. After their death, attempts are made to convert them into harmless icons, to canonize them, so to say, and to hallow their names to a certain extent for the consolation of the oppressed classes, and with the object of duping the oppressed classes, while at the same time robbing the revolutionary theory of its substance, blunting its revolutionary edge,
Yes, sir.
and vulgarizing it.
Wow.
Now look at this, man. Wow.
So they put our brother, a man that called, that 90% of his career, he called a white man the devil, then the white man put him on a stamp.
Ooh, that should tell you something right there. Come on.
As Arsenio used to famously say, things that make you go,
That's right, sir. That's right.
El Haj Malik.
a man that literally has an entry, a dictionary entry in the dictionary of anti-Semitism.
Wow.
He's on a stamp.
Look at that, man.
And in what we published, we're going to show you many of Malcolm's critiques of the exploitive role of Jewish merchants in Harlem. The ADL did a multi-page report publishing Malcolm's statements and why they disagree with the lionization or the reintroduction of Malcolm, even though their own brothers in the entertainment industry are responsible for the reintroduction. When Malcolm passed away, I just look at how the major newspapers talk bad about Malcolm right after he died. The same man that ended up on a stamp had a major motion picture devoted to him. It's given the black youth as their hero, but again was hated. Said Malcolm, they say Malcolm, New York Times said Malcolm had the ingredients for leadership, but his ruthless and fanatical belief in violence not only set him apart from the responsible leaders of the civil rights movement and the overwhelming majority of Negroes, it also marked him for notoriety and for a violent end.
Wow.
Other newspapers around the country talked about how he wasted his life and his talent.
Come on,
The man that they celebrate today, they hated when he was alive. Let's talk a little bit about the book.
Come on now.
Break it down.
That's told too.
First thing you should appreciate is that Malcolm never approved the publication of this book.
Wow.
It came out after he was assassinated.
Yes, sir. Right. Yes, sir.
When I approve, I don't mean that he didn't agree to do it, but as a publisher, you have to get the final manuscript, go through it, either approve or disprove. Either say add this, take this away, change this. So Malcolm never got a chance to go through that process. As it was being finalized, he was on the run. Again, Godfather of Harlem talks about this relationship between Malcolm and Bumpy Johnson. Again, they met in '63. Malcolm spent maybe 24 weeks or a large amount of time. I have to go back in my notes to see, but he spent almost half a year out of the country in '64, which was the last year of his life. So again, he wasn't really in a position to approve the manuscript that would become his autobiography. Manning Marable talked about how Alex Haley was a purveyor of information to the FBI. Malcolm never knew that. He talks about how Haley added content to it to reflect his own thinking as an integrationist Republican.
Oh, say that, say that.
Now he's co-writing the book with Malcolm. Oddly enough, he was not someone who shared Malcolm's views.
Wow.
He wasn't in ideological agreement with Brother Malcolm. He certainly wasn't in religious agreement with Brother Malcolm. This was a job for him. And now, all throughout the reintroduction of Malcolm, you literally have Malcolm now that really needs to be defended in many ways. Because he and his legacy, the good that he did, is being commercialized and bastardized. Malcolm would never have a people wanted to be in front of no American flag and no promotional material. You maybe can't see it, but he's wearing a lapel pin. On that lapel pin is similar to the lapel pin my brother has on here, my brother has on here, my brother has on here. Inside that lapel pin is the flag of Islam.
That's right.
Malcolm taught, as we all have been taught in the nation, that the American flag is a symbol of slavery, suffering, and death. And that the flag of Islam that you see draped here is a symbol of freedom, justice, and equality.
That's right.
He would have been outraged that his image would be marketed as such.
Come on, brother.
They are putting our brother's image all on his t-shirt. They put him in a Santa Claus hat. Do you know that Malcolm taught the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that December 25th is the birthday of the wicked man Nimrod?
That's right.
History, come on.
Who broke the civilization of Moses by 300 years.
That's right.
Malcolm would not want to be associated with no Santa Claus. He would have told you the word Santa is nothing but an anagram for the word Satan.
It's anagram. Go ahead. Merry Christmas.
So he's become a cash cow now. Go to Amazon. Over 8,000 search results come back when you put in Malcolm X.
8,000.
Hats, cups, merchandise of all kinds.
Merchandise.
Yet, you find nobody really but one man carrying out the ideas of Malcolm X. Black nationalism, Islam, activism. That's Minister Louis Farrakhan.
That's right.
See, so all of those who claim Malcolm,
Listen.
where is their rebuilt OAAU?
Come on, brother.
Where's their rebuilt Muslim Mosque Inc.? Those were the two organizations Malcolm founded after he left the nation. Where are they today?
Representation.
You may have some group somewhere, some far-flung place, calling themselves the OAAU. But by and large, as Malcolm went into the grave, so did his movements. Where are those who say they love him, organizing to rebuild those two organizations? Because see, if you rebuild OAAU, guess what? You're going to be an ally of the Nation of Islam.
That's right.
If you rebuild Muslim Mosque Incorporated, guess what? You're going to be an ally of the Nation of Islam.
That's right.
Because the Muslim is the brother of every other Muslim.
That's
a Muslim
right.
is the sister of every other Muslim.
That's right, brother.
That's right. Come on, brother. Merchants of death.
They made him a recruiter for Orthodox Islam.
Ooh.
Even though Malcolm maintained that I am a Muslim, but my politics, my economic philosophy, my view of international affairs is black nationalism. So this problematic, him being used for a variant of the religion of Islam, that always maintains Islam don't deal with race.
That's right.
But you're going to make Brother Malcolm, the man who emphasized black nationalism, was compatible with Islam. He your poster boy now? No. You're trying to use a man for your benefit in death that most of you who want to use him hated him in life.
That's right.
Then the horrible calumny that Professor Marable as well as Bruce Parry promoted that Malcolm was gay.
Oh, stop.
That lets us to know
masculinity.
that, you know, all of this hyperbolic sensationalism surrounding Malcolm X is garbage. It lets us know it's propaganda. This being strategically timed for the rise of the LGBT movement in America.
Strategically timed.
As you have the youth activist organizations now, see, in the 60s, the philosophy was integration. In the modern era, the philosophy is intersectionality. Not that suffering people don't have common interests, they do. But the aspect of intersectionality that this is a part of is wherein they want youth activists to equate the suffering of black people with the suffering of the LGBT community.
Go ahead.
Now, as a Muslim, we decry the suffering of any people. We believe in freedom, justice, and equality for all. We don't hide that. That's on the back page of every issue of our newspaper.
That's right.
And we would never stand by to see a brother or sister who was gay, lesbian, transgender, whatever, being violated or harmed. You're not going to do that on our watch.
Right.
However,
Teach.
we cannot say that the suffering has been the same. These brothers, when they walk down the street, I read an article just today. They've now done the statistic to say that a leading cause of death for black males is police brutality. A leading cause of death. These brothers walk down the street, they can't hide their blackness.
No.
Our sisters can't hide their blackness. But if you're LGBT, don't nobody know that unless you tell them.
That's right.
That's right. That's right.
Don't know what your sexuality is.
That's right.
Teacher.
That's where how you get this whole phenomenon of down low brothers.
Right.
Because can't nobody tell.
Right.
Get in the gym bench pressing 500 pounds.
Swedish sugar.
But you don't know what his sexual orientation is.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Come on, Brother Demetri.
We can't abide that, but that is what this is a part of.
Good point.
Their real strategy is they want to use Malcolm to kill the minister.
That's
right.
That's it right there.
Again, Malcolm's hated in death. So how did he come back into vogue? Professor Michael Eric Dyson has said, the cultural rebirth of Malcolm X then is the remarkable result of complex forces converging to lift him from his violent death in 1965. His heroic status hinges partially on the broad and belated appeal of his variety of black nationalism to Americans who, when he lived, either ignored or despised him.
That's right.
But Malcolm's appeal is strongest among black youth between the ages of 15 and 24 who find in him a figure of epic racial achievement.
Come on.
Go back. His rebirth is the result of forces lifting him. Well, why would you lift a man that you hated so much? Do you know, brother and sister, that one of the most improbable things to ever happen was the rebuilding of the Nation of Islam?
Improbable. Right.
It was improbable because all of the great organizations of the past, the U.S. government was pretty much successful in destroying it.
That's right.
That's true.
Only one that came back was the nation.
Right.
We back. Come on.
They were surprised that Farrakhan
Come on, brother.
especially could do it.
That's right. That's right.
Praise be to Allah.
You know, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said when he first met Minister Farrakhan, he said, "Brother, you remind me of David." If you ever read the scriptures, you remember when the prophet came to Jesse's house to anoint the new king of Israel. He went to all of Jesse's sons, and he could not see that the Spirit of God anointed any of the sons. So the prophet invaded with Jesse. "Don't you have some other sons?" He said, "These are all the sons I got." Well, he said, "Well, I got David, but certainly he's not the one that made
He's out of field.
Come on, brother.
He was young and tender.
Yeah.
He was not statuesque.
Yeah.
He was not bold or aggressive in nature and temperament.
That's right.
He was a caretaker of sheep.
Right. Shepherd, come on.
You know, sheep kind of animal, they need a shepherd.
Yes, sir, brother.
I've never been a shepherd, but they tell me that it's easy to lead sheep in the wrong direction. It's hard to lead them in the right direction. I don't know, that's what they tell me.
Come on,
So
brother.
they need a shepherd. They need someone that cares for them
Yes,
and is
sir.
willing to sacrifice himself fighting the wolf that wants to come and eat the sheep.
Eat the sheep, man.
So David's courage was hidden under David's compassion. And yet when the prophet saw David, he couldn't contain himself. Because the anointing of God
That's right.
was on the most improbable, the most unlikely of all of Jesse's sons.
Yes.
So nobody thought little sweet-hearted Farrakhan.
Come on.
He always used to preach on love.
Teach. That's right.
He can't bring back the nation.
Teach.
You need a strong, aggressive type of minister. Maybe could bring back the nation. So in 1983, 20-year anniversary of March on Washington, thousands of people come out, all kind of speakers. Mr. Farrakhan had just begun the rebuilding work in 1977. He refused to do any interviews.
Right.
He said, because in nature, long before you see something grow out of the ground, the seed is going deep into the earth to put roots. So he spent about 7 years, he wouldn't do any interviews.
That's right.
He was working underground.
That's right.
Going to different cities, creating cells. He had a cell in Tampa. He had a cell in D.C. He had a cell in Mississippi. All over these places.
That's deep.
And he was moving almost like the bee moves. Going to different flowers, getting nectar that he would ultimately gather together people to make honey. Spiritual honey, and that the wisdom of God heals people and it's soothing to those that have labored under false. But the point was, all praise is due to Allah. After the minister spoke on that day, the press went crazy. They literally said, "Who is he? And how come we don't know nothing about him?" He stole the show. He only spoke for about 6 minutes. Ben Hooks was there. Jesse Jackson was there. Joseph Lowry was there. All of the erstwhile and predominant leaders of the black struggle. And they were alarmed because, as is our custom, the minister came before thousands of people and he said, "Assalamu alaikum."
That's right.
And thousands of people responded with a thunderous and wa alaikum salam.
Yes, sir. Yes,
They
sir.
thought that they had killed the nation instead of that was their first indicator. As they say, Houston.
We got a problem. Yes, sir.
That's
Big
right.
problem.
Then in 85, the minister goes to Madison Square Garden
Yes.
where entertainers perform. Now just check the scene with me.
Heart of New York City.
This is a man who goes to stand and preach and teach a lecture. You don't even call it a sermon. It's a lecture to give an educational connotation to what we do. A man that delivers lectures and gets audiences the size of rock stars.
That's right.
Go ahead, brother.
That's
A
right.
man that sink in.
Go ahead, brother. That's deep, man. That's deep.
No, he filled Madison Square Garden.
That's deep.
He didn't only fill the garden that hold about 20 or 30,000.
No.
He also filled the Felt Forum, which was adjacent.
That's right.
People who were there, there may be brothers and sisters here. I don't know if Brother James was there and others.
Yeah.
But there was a policy that you couldn't bring a camera in.
That's
so
right.
if people was in such long lines, they wanted to get in so bad, they threw their cameras away.
That's right.
They said, look, I ain't going in the back of the line. I want to get in to see Minister Farrakhan. If I can get a camera in, then bye-bye camera.
That's right. That's right.
Go ahead. I love white bar.
Well, if this man that's alive, nobody can compete with him. Well, the powers that be said, we have to go to the cemetery. There was nobody alive that they could put up to compete with Farrakhan.
You gotta go to the cemetery. You gotta go to the cemetery. Graveyard. Dig out the
That's a
graveyard.
heck of a thing.
Bone collector.
Think about it. Here's a man that they hate because he's rebuilding the one movement that was always their greatest concern.
Teach, man.
And they don't have nobody that they can steer the people to. Because they couldn't steer him to Reverend Jackson. You know, because Reverend Jackson, in as much as he was a brother trying to work for the people, he didn't really have any appeal among the youth
At all.
so they went to give up Malcolm
Never did.
that they hated.
Yes,
They
sir.
say, let's make Malcolm the hero for the youth. Then we'll blame Farrakhan for his death. We'll blame the nation for his death. So they'll be in love with a leader that's not alive to lead. And they'll hate the living man that could lead them against us. Again, as Minister Abel said, the white man knows how to become the leader of his own opposition.
Teach, man.
Exactly.
Make it plain, brother Demetric. Make it plain, brother.
And this is Professor Gardell. He wrote an excellent book talking about the minister. Farrakhan is able to attract a larger audience than any other black spokesperson. And he gives some of the numbers. These are rock star crowds.
That's right, brother.
I know many entertainers that would give their eye tooth, as they say, for that kind of audience.
That's right, brother.
Especially in those days, because there wasn't no Twitter.
No social media.
Wasn't no social media.
No social media.
Radio. Send an email blast out to all your fans.
Radio hookup.
No, there was men and women, hoops on the ground, passing out flyers, selling tickets, doing it the old-fashioned way. Bench promotion.
Yes, sir. Boots on the ground. Come on.
So we're just talking about the value of Minister Farrakhan. I'm going to move on a little bit quickly. Some of these sections, it's so much that Allah has blessed us to have that I finally agreed with people who was insisting, brother, you have to put this in book form.
That's good, sir.
And so if it is the will of Allah in a few days,
Yes,
that will be
sir.
complete.
Yes, sir.
So,
All right.
I don't want you to feel bad, all praises to Allah. I don't want you to feel like you're missing anything if I get to certain sections and I either gloss over it or not even deal with it at this time. Because I do want to feel a few of your questions. But there's a lot here, and it may be that we answer your question that you have now in what we've already prepared. I have tried to be thoughtful in preparing this information based upon what I have been able to observe of what people are interested in and where their thinking is on this subject. So you may find that we may cover what you is on your mind. So Professor Gardell, again, not an apologist for the Nation of Islam. He's a professor of theology from Sweden. So he wrote a pretty good book on the minister and the nation. So I'm going to go through these. Farrakhan has a unique capability, able to reach deeply into the souls of black youth. He's able to talk to them in a way that really makes them listen. This report enables Minister Farrakhan to criticize and redirect destructive behavioral patterns. Then he goes and talk about a lot of the minister's record. bringing about an end to gang violence in many cities. You know, we taught in the research that we're publishing about how this propaganda campaign is also an effort to stop the spread of Islam. Do you know, brothers and sisters, that when our foreparents were enslaved, they said that the most difficult slaves to master were the Muslims?
Yes, sir.
It's difficult.
So wherever they found that there was Muslims, they worked hard to find them, identify them, and get rid of them. So they never wanted Islam to have a presence among us. Because in Islam, see, slavery is based upon fear.
Yeah, yeah.
The slave fears the master, so he obeys the master.
Hello.
Well, as Muslims, we aren't even allowed to fear anything except God.
This is true.
In Islam, we are taught persecution is worse than slaughter.
Right.
In Islam, the Quran says, and had Allah not risen up men to repel men, the whole earth would be overrun with evil. In Islam, the Quran says, it was not you who slew them, but it was I who slew them by your hand.
That's right. Come on.
So Islam is a religion that you can see now. If you're trying to oppress a people, you don't want them to believe in Islam. Because they're never going to accept oppression as their lot in life. And they're going to accept it.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
They will always be thinking, plotting, planning, strategizing on how to get free.
Yes, sir.
So they don't want Islam. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad once famously said, the white man of America is well informed through his scientists and scholars who are paid just for studying the problems of prophecy, and especially the future destruction of America, which he knows is fast coming. His greatest mental burden and physical strain at the present time is how to prevent the spread of Islam among his ex-servitude slaves.
Yes.
And that may surprise some people because you don't hear the folk on the 6 o'clock news talking about nothing they read from the prophecies of Bible and Quran. So you don't think they even read Bible and Quran.
Right.
But the reality is they do study prophecy. And they know our condition is within the prophecies. Our deliverance is within the prophecy. So they have studied us. So we talk about how Islam has a young black face. You know, Islam is attractive and appealing, and people want to be a part of the Islam as taught in the Nation of Islam. It's not the old world Islam, where you got to walk around, you know, wearing Middle Eastern garb, yet you live in America. You know, it's not an Islam that is ancient. It's a modern Islam. It's a modern expression of Islam. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, this is new Islam.
New Islam.
You go through what many of the scholars have said about Islam. I want to give Malcolm the credit that he is due, because as he was turned against his teacher at the end of his life, the hypocrisy that he manifested was not an organic hypocrisy against his teacher, but I have dubbed it a manufactured hypocrisy. See, Satan is powerful, brothers and sisters.
Yes,
Very powerful. Very powerful.
And my mind goes to when Jesus was rebuking the Jewish leaders in the New Testament, Minister Chad. He said, you go out to make a convert, but every convert you make him a twofold child of hell.
Wow. Twofold.
So Satan has the ability to make a believer a hypocrite. See, because before you come to faith, you're a child of hell for sure.
Right, for sure. For sure.
But what will make you a twofold child of hell after you left hell and came into the heavenly life of faith and belief? It is that those who could, as you were, quote unquote, converted to faith, they work on you and then they convert you into disbelief and hypocrisy.
They work on you. Drop the seed.
Satan is very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
But Malcolm deserves a lot of credit. He was the minister of Temple No. 7 and national representative of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Yes, sir.
He was a clean living man.
Yes, yes.
It said over a glass of ginger ale, not a glass of gin and juice. A glass of ginger ale. He eats only one meal a day. And like all Muslims, eschews smoking, drinking, gambling, and the eating of pork. So he lived a clean life. And that's again my message to the young brothers who are always trying to clap back against us in social media. I will respect you and your love for Malcolm when I see you trying to be self-disciplined like Malcolm was.
Right.
I will respect you and your love for Malcolm when I see you trying to do what Malcolm was trying to do, which was be an agent of the deliverance of his people. When I see you somewhere challenging the forces that be, serving and working in the community, trying to teach our people and improve their condition of life. When I see you do that, then I will respect your love for Malcolm. Until then, to me, my interpretation of you is just some random person who has a keyboard that is that feels comfortable saying in private what you would never say in public.
Wow. Teach. Man, go ahead.
But Malcolm's personal example is worthy of emulation. His example from 1952 through the end of 1963, if that was what was being passed on to the youth who said they loved Malcolm, we wouldn't really have no problem.
Correct.
But while the youth claim a love for Malcolm, we have at the same time the school to prison pipeline.
Simultaneously. Go ahead, man.
How do we have black youth, Latino youth, indigenous youth, poor white youth filling up jails and prisons while they claim Malcolm is their man?
Right.
Malcolm X wasn't in prison. Malcolm Little went to prison. Detroit Red was in prison. But if Malcolm X is your hero, Malcolm came out of a criminal existence through the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
That's right.
Elijah Muhammad is the tree that produced him. How can you love the fruit and hate the root and the tree that produced the fruit?
Wow, good question.
Good question.
You sound like a person who got a mental disability.
Right. That's a nice way to say it. Go ahead.
You like oranges? We down here in Florida, the land of the orange grove. How could you love oranges, Brother Michael, and hate orange trees? Come on.
Ooh, go ahead. Go ahead.
That don't make no sense.
No, it's nonsensical.
You love a man and hate the man that produced it. That means you can never become like the man you say is your hero.
I never become like that.
We choose heroes to serve as ideals for what we aspire to be.
Yes, sir.
But those who claim that Malcolm is their hero, we see hardly any aspiration to be like him, except a little 10% of his life, where he was kind of like in a posture of rugged individualism. You identify with somebody not following no man. You identify with someone who wants the freedom to be outside of any type of moral constraint.
Right.
Teach on it.
Malcolm was a Muslim. He was a man of faith. Many of these that consider themselves to be his adorers and admirers, they walk away from faith.
They don't grasp that part.
They love Malcolm on this side, but then they go to the other side and say, you know, all religion is organized religion, so I'm throwing all of that away. Yes, there's a lot of problems with so-called organized religion. But you can't blame God and the prophets on what those who call themselves the representatives of God and the prophets have done of sin and evil.
Right.
I think they call that in the world of logical fallacies, throwing out the baby with the bathwater.
Yes, sir.
I've always maintained that if you don't want to be a Muslim, but you want to follow Malcolm, why don't you be like the Black Panthers? They seized upon Malcolm's legacy and they said, you know what? We're going to organize ourselves and we're going to serve our community. So they literally created ministries. The Black Panther Party are like the ideological children of Malcolm, which makes them the ideological grandchildren of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Yes, sir.
And just like the government came against the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, they worked to destroy the Panthers. But at their height, the Panthers were doing much good for our people. Look at all these ministries that they had. This one here, there's one, some of us are probably, and I'm going to tell my age here in a second, but some of us probably, when we started school, we went to Head Start.
Yes. I'm
And Head Start was a government program. But the idea for Head Start came from the Black Panthers.
Yes, sir.
In Oakland and in cities where the Panthers were, they started a free breakfast program for the children in the hood. Because the teachers say the children going to school, they can't stay awake, they're hungry, they're tired. They couldn't get no breakfast because the parents are poor, they have no money. So the Panthers set up places where the children could go and get a breakfast on their way to school. And J. Edgar Hoover famously called the Black Panther Party free breakfast program for school children one of the greatest threats to America. Think over
Look at that. Look at that. Listen.
the sickness of Mr. Hoover, the sickness of those in powerful positions within government that would look upon a little group of black people really doing for themselves what the government should have been doing all along anyway.
Right.
And called it a threat. Then they worked to shut it down, then they took it. And that's what gave you your Head Start program all over the country.
Wow, interesting.
I want to say about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I want you to study him. Because we're not just referring to him as honorable, just because we're some blind religious zealots who we're gonna ride for our man. You know, we ride or die for Elijah. That's true, we are. But that does not have anything to do with his record of achievement. He's worthy of honor based on both qualitative and quantitative data. What do I mean by that? His honor can be measured. Any of you that have been in the world of science or business, you know that goals and objectives have to be measurable.
Right.
You can't just say, I want to be the greatest real estate salesperson working with Brother Michael. Brother Michael don't want to know, well, okay, brother, well, what's your goal? How many homes do you want to sell?
What's your goal?
I just want to be the best. Okay, well, I want to help you be the best. But you got to have a number. There got to be something we can measure. So if you don't make this number, now we know how much more work we need to do.
Right. That makes sense.
This man, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, has a body of work.
Yes.
He's not like our pastor. You know, you go to church and fight. Don't say nothing about my pastor. He's the man of God. That ain't what this is. Even though he is the man of God, he has for certainly pastored and nurtured us. But the value of this man, Elijah Muhammad, extends far beyond those who call themselves believers in him. This man wrote a book called The Man Behind the Men. And he began to say what Minister Farrakhan had said. Everybody know Malcolm. Some people know Imam Muhammad. Everybody know Farrakhan and Muhammad Ali. But there's a man that made them. They are the fruit of the tree of Elijah. This man was writing in an Orthodox, so-called Orthodox or Sunni Muslim publication, published in the United Kingdom in Britain. He said, judging Elijah Muhammad and his followers by their character and behavior, honesty, personal and public morality, fearlessness, and faith in God, one would be led to hail them as excellent Muslims. The success of the Orthodox Muslims is only a fraction of what the Muslims in America have accomplished under Elijah Muhammad.
No way. No way.
That man ain't from the Nation of Islam. He's an outside observer, an objective observer. Other Muslims testifying to the same thing, talking about how they see the Nation of Islam as the fulfillment of the rising of the sun in the West. S. Muhammad Tufail, who's an international Muslim scholar, said, we have been watching the Muslim movement in America with great interest for many years. It is a great movement in this part of the world. It would do a great service not only to their people, but to Islam as a whole. There's a tradition of the prophet that in the latter times the sun will rise in the west. We interpret this as meaning the sun of Islam will rise in the west. The man during the interview said, do you interpret the fact that a large Muslim movement has come about in America under the leadership of Mr. Muhammad as being a sign of the fulfillment of the prophet? He says, yes, this may be. Only the future will decide. In the early times, Islam spread toward the east, but in this instance, it's going to spread and dominate in the Western Hemisphere. See, this is not what people inside the nation have said about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Right.
What people on the outside.
Yes.
That's right, that's right.
Why did Reader's Digest, a white publication?
Right, right.
I know a lot of us have access to the back man, but we don't even read the back cover.
Right. It's on there.
Some powerful stuff on that back
Yeah,
cover.
it is.
The most powerful black man in America. A group of people searching, fighting, struggling for power. Yet, our enemy identified a man that has power.
Right.
And the most power.
Right.
Some people said, well, he didn't teach the right Islam. But his son, who went to teach Sunni Islam, he said, I don't owe my cleanliness to my new understanding of what Islam is. I owe my cleanliness to the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I owe my moral obedience to that teaching. I owe my success to the person of that teaching. So, some of you have, I think my brother was talking about, he was reading Hail Elijah, and I was so happy because that was one of the works that we are most proud of. Because we wanted to show that for every person that you would present that would condemn Elijah, we can present to you many more that would sing his praises. Inside the nation and outside the nation. Mayors, from the LGBT community, our brother James Baldwin. And they want to say the nation is homophobic. One of the most foremost in the black gay community is the legendary writer and activist Jimmy Baldwin, or James Baldwin. He said of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he had a great love, respect, and admiration for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Nation of Islam, as well as Malcolm X. He said Elijah Muhammad, now listen to what this man said, who's not a member of the nation. He said Elijah Muhammad has been able to do what generations of welfare workers and committees and resolutions and reports and housing projects and playgrounds have failed to do. To heal and redeem drunkards and junkies, to convert people who have come out of prison and to keep them out, to make men chaste and women virtuous, and to invest both the male and the female with the pride and the security that hang about them like an unfailing light. Professor Herbert Bird talking about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as a pioneer of Islam in America. We have the Mexican leader, Cesar Chavez, who led the farm workers' revolution. Here he is, you see him holding Muhammad Speaks newspaper. And he said, we told our people it's got to be done like the Muslims do.
Ooh, go ahead. That's an example.
So as he is organizing his people to fight against their oppression, he looked at the model of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam.
All praise to Allah.
So we're not referring to him as honorable because we're just some blind religious automaton robots, you know. No, he has a work that has been done that vindicates him, not just as honorable, being the most honorable. Daniel Pipes is a white man, a Jewish apologist, who wrote a story called How Elijah Muhammad Won. Think over that. This man basically saying, after all of the stuff they did to little Elijah, he comes out victorious.
All the stuff.
And he says, yeah, they try to say Malcolm was this and that. He said, but in the final analysis, it was another man, Malcolm X's mentor, who had the greater impact on establishing Islam among African Americans, Elijah Muhammad. He tried to throw some shots in there, going to call him inarticulate and uncharismatic and heterodox and all of that kind of stuff. That's kind of what you call sometimes in the language of the streets a backhanded compliment, you know, but a compliment nonetheless. Because when your enemy tips his hat to you, that's worthy of noticing. If I get into Malachi form of preaching, we're going to be here all night, so I got to keep it moving. Because I know y'all want to get into the nitty gritty. Didn't y'all kill Malcolm? You take a drink of water.
Praise be to Allah, brother. Praise be to Allah. Praise be to Allah.
Y'all got me fired up down here.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to drink the water up here.
Yeah, no, you in.
So,
You're going in, brother.
when we first started this, we put this into Google. Farrakhan murder Malcolm X. And to our surprise, some 128,000 sites carry this rumor, this mythology. So, and I don't know, it's been a minute since I did that. Maybe more, maybe less. Now, I don't know. But I know that that thought is out there. So let's start with facts. This brother here is the only admitted killer of Malcolm X. A brother named Thomas Hagan or Talmadge Hager. Now, this brother was arrested, but he was innocent. This brother was also arrested, and he was innocent. Those two brothers, Norman 3X Butler and Thomas 15X Johnson, were members of Mosque number 7. Everybody who was at the Audubon Ballroom has borne witness they were not present there that day. Even Talmadge Hager has testified that they were not a part of the plan or the plot to kill Malcolm, that he was. Yet it shows from the very start that there was a plan afoot to kill Malcolm and blame it on the nation. Even the members of Malcolm's inner circle, many of whom were from Mosque number 7. When Malcolm left, they followed Malcolm. So Norman 3X Butler and Thomas 15X Johnson were persons that they knew, that they would have remembered if they had been there that day. Besides the fact that Norman 3X Butler had a broken leg and was at home trying to heal a broken leg. So from the beginning, there was an insistence that the nation take the blame. In the late 70s, and you'll read about this when the book is out, Talmadge Hager wrote a couple affidavits to give more detail than he did in 1965. And in those affidavits, he named 4 other men who were also a part of the plot to assassinate Brother Malcolm with him. And he also, when he was being released from prison, and he was asked, and he'd been asked several times, were you ordered by the Nation of Islam to do this? He said no. So the killer, number one, or one of the shooters of 5, because when you get into the details of the case, Talmadge Hare had a 9mm, but there was another man that had a shotgun. And the autopsy says it was the shotgun blast that actually killed Malcolm. But just for a fact check, there's an admitted killer. His name is not Louis Farrakhan. The admitted killer has never implicated Louis Farrakhan. The admitted killer named his 4 other accomplices that the government never would follow up and investigate his statement. He gave them names, addresses, occupations. They never went to go and arrest those men. They never went to go and investigate, because they had already satisfied doing what they intended to do. We want to set the stage, facilitate the act, and blame the nation. And just to show you how they were really hoping for a water breakout, they firebombed Mosque number 7 the day Malcolm was assassinated. They wanted a war between the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's followers and Malcolm's followers. That's what they wanted. They wanted us to fight and kill each other. And then they would have done, as the old saying goes, got rid of 2 birds with 1 stone. Facts. Jim Vanderwall and Ward Churchill, 2 writers who have done a lot of research into the COINTELPRO papers fire. They wrote a book. They published a memo in that book. And a part of the memo is the FBI taking credit for what happened to Malcolm X. And let me say it again.
Yes, sir.
The government took credit for what happened to Brother Malcolm. Now, do you remember when 9/11 happened?
Right.
They told us that Osama bin Laden took credit for it. And that was all they needed. It happened. He said he did it. Go get him. So here they are taking credit for Brother Malcolm's assassination. They say that they created factions within the nation for the purpose of the destruction of the nation. Again, Elijah Muhammad is their target. The Nation of Islam is their target. Malcolm is a secondary target based upon his ability to support and help and popularize Elijah Muhammad and his movements. So in many ways, in this war that began before Malcolm came to the nation, this government had been trying to destroy the nation since its inception in the 30s.
Yes.
This was an ongoing war.
Right. Yes, sir.
So they chose to take out, they chose to flip and turn, and then ultimately assassinate Elijah Muhammad's chief helper at that time. So he becomes collateral damage in a war between the U.S. government and really the liberation of black people that the Nation of Islam was at the head of.
That's it, brother. That's it.
Part of the memo says, by the point of Malcolm's assassination during a speech in Harlem on the night of February 21st, 1965, the FBI had compiled at least 2,300 pages of material on the victim in just one of his files on him, the NOI and the OAAU. Malcolm was supposedly murdered by former colleagues in the NOI as a result of the faction fighting which led to his splitting away from that movement and their natural wrath at his establishment of a competing entity. However, as the accompanying January 22nd, 1969 memo from the special agent in charge of Chicago to the director makes clear, the NOI factionalism at issue didn't just happen.
Right.
Rather, it had been developed by deliberate bureau actions through infiltration, and the sparking of acrimonious debates within the organization designed to neutralize the organization. Now, as a witness bearer to this, I love bringing these type people to the witness stand because I'm like this. I don't want you to take my word for it. That's why I like showing my sources. As they say, show your receipts. You know, I don't mind doing that because then your argument is not with me. Your argument is with my source.
Right.
This is Canadian professor Martha Lee, who says, in many ways, then, the Nation of Islam provides a case study of why and how a religious movement with a radical belief system did not engage in violence related to its doctrine. Its members waited in faith for Allah to destroy the forces that oppressed them. Instead, it was law enforcement agencies that more actively fostered violence in hopes of destroying the Nation of Islam.
Say that.
Now, you probably never heard of Professor Martha F. Lee because we don't read. You know, we want to get our history from a movie. We think we're going to learn about the Civil War by watching a Civil War movie. We're going to learn about the Nation of Islam by watching a movie. Don't get your history from your entertainment.
Yes, sir.
Now, I want to point, and I'm moving in the interest of time.
Yes, sir.
We're almost to where I want to be.
Oh, praise the Lord.
I want you to think with me, brothers and sisters. They want you to believe that the nation killed Malcolm and that the government did it. But do you know that in 1999, just a few years ago, they reopened the assassination of Dr. King? And a jury found that the government is responsible for the assassination of Martin Luther King. Now, my question to you is this. You think they would have conspired to kill Dr. King and let Malcolm live? Come on. Think about it.
No, sir.
The kinder, gentler Martin Luther King, and let the radical firebrand Malcolm live.
Don't unity much.
That should tell you and I something right there. That they were willing to kill a man whose basic mantra was, let's integrate and get along and make America great again. Almost sound Trumpian, doesn't it?
Yes.
A good man. And as he was emerging out of a dream state and beginning to see things a lot different. In 1966, Dr. King had a meeting with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Yes, sir.
See, they're trying to say that Elijah Muhammad was afraid Malcolm was going to go and get with the civil rights leaders and it was going to just blow up and become the leader of black people in America. You don't know history.
Right.
Had Malcolm done that, he would have ultimately been right back around sitting across the same tables with Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam. Because Dr. King, Stokely Carmichael, and others had begun to come to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, seeking his guidance, seeking his wisdom, and forging alliances with the nation. So had Malcolm lived, he would never have been any threat to the Nation of Islam. He would have become an ally for the Nation of Islam.
Come on.
See, since they want to have artistic expression and creative license, let us do the same for a moment. What if Malcolm had lived and when he became a civil rights activist? In 1966, Dr. King may have brought Malcolm with him to meet with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Because Dr. King and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, they had formed a pact. One of the first projects that they had agreed to work together on was alleviating poverty in the inner cities of Chicago. But they don't talk to you about that. In 1964, again, just to show there was no fear. In 1964, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the summer spoke in New York City. Malcolm also planned a rally for the same day. Malcolm got tens of people, Mr. Muhammad drew out thousands of people.
Listen, add it up.
Well, there was no competition.
Right. No competition.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was Malcolm's teacher.
Yes,
Right.
sir.
Right.
The teacher don't fear the student.
Right. Good teacher.
Because a good teacher knows the strengths, the potential, and the limitations of the
Yes,
student.
That's right. That's right. Yes, sir.
And like a good father and mother, you try to work with the student.
Right.
Raise your hand if you're a parent.
Yes, sir.
Now, if you're a mother or father, you know your child, don't you?
No. No.
That's why sometimes if somebody come and tell us something about our child, we say, yep, he did that.
Yeah.
We know our children. And they tell you something else, no, he didn't do that. That, he did that. I know my child. So the parent now, understanding strengths, weaknesses, limitations of the child. So now, my son is strong here, but he's weak here. I gotta help him to be strong where he's weak.
That's right.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad conceived that Malcolm could take his place in the leadership of the nation. He wanted a helper, not a helper of a lead as a leader of an organization, but a helper as a messenger of God. So you got to understand the paradigm from which the Nation of Islam operates.
Come on.
See, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Minister Farrakhan, they think from a spiritual, a religious paradigm.
Yes, sir.
We don't do politics in a conventional way politics is done. There are natural politics that attend to any type of organizational manifestation or structure. There's politics in a family. Older child say, Mom and Daddy love the baby, so send the baby in there to ask and see if he's That's politics. That's a political move. The oldest child ain't going there. There's politics and everything.
That's right.
But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wanted an Aaron for his Moses.
Yes.
However, some of you got to appreciate, he knew what whoever would sit in his seat would face. And he had to test them. He had to try them. Putting them through similar things that he himself went through. To see how they would react.
That's thorough.
Those who want to put their mouth on the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, a man that never harmed black America.
Come on.
He never did nothing for black folk to hate him.
Yes,
He
sir.
never did nothing against us. He never turned on us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He sacrificed his life and the life of his family for the good of us.
Go ahead.
Some of you ignorant people walk around hating a man that never did nothing against you.
Ignorant. Come on.
But you don't know what he went through
Straight.
to sit in the seat that God gave him to sit in, but he had to suffer just to sit in it.
Come on, Brother DEMETRIC. Come on, black man.
When Master Farrakhan Muhammad, the great Mahdi, God in person, left,
Teach hard. Teach
the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said he had 36 ministers in the ministry class. And all but a handful turned on him.
Come on.
Some of them, he said, sought his life.
Come on.
He did not seek theirs. He just sought avoidance of them.
That's all right.
So for 7 years,
On the run.
he went on the run, trying to avoid hypocrites and those who misunderstood. Then after those 7 years, he was arrested and went to prison for 5 years.
Teach on the suffering.
And when he got out of prison, he began the work of rebuilding his nation. He didn't go and seek those who were trying to pursue him to kill them. So So he was not a retaliatory, motivated leader.
Right, brother. Come on. Yes, sir.
That's right.
He could have, once he got strong and got an arm, and said, go and find this one,
right.
go and find that one, and make them pay for what they did to me. He never said that, because you can't sit in the mercy seat of God and not be willing to be merciful. You have to be able to take abuse, ridicule. You have to suffer envy and jealousy of your brothers and sisters without retaliating. You have to absorb it. You have to go and crawl up and get in the bosom of God.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And ask God to keep you and to be your source of strength. You have to take refuge in God if you're going to lead a people that God wants to save.
Teach your heart.
Because the same people that you try to save, they will turn against you.
Ooh, that's cool.
So Elijah Muhammad had to test him out. Yes, you can speak well, son. Yes, you're popular, son. Yes, you're courageous, son. You're brilliant, son. But it takes more than that to sit in my seat after I'm gone.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So he had to test him. Yes, he knew other ministers was jealous of him. But the father sitting back to see. I want to see how the son going to handle it. Yes, he knew he had problems, internal problems in the mind, but he wanted to see how the son going to handle it. Because what Malcolm would endure on a mosque level, if he ever sat in the seat of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he would endure on a national level, on a world level. And you could not be possessed of a retaliatory spirit. You can't kill the people that God had raised you to save just because they reject you initially.
Come on.
Good teaching.
It wasn't about jealousy or envy. It's about trying to see if this man has the mettle to sit in a seat. That the price you pay to sit in this seat is inordinate suffering.
Right. Come on.
Price of redemption. Come on. Come on.
Come on.
Come on, brother.
I'm sorry, brothers and sisters. I get
No.
passionate. Calm myself down and finish before morning. I'm gonna get y'all out of here before breakfast. And just hang with me. We almost there.
There you go. Be enjoying it, brother. Come on.
Why did the minister say complicity?
Oh, my God.
Every little Tom, Dick, and Harry on the internet say, yeah, I heard my own mouth. Farrakhan say he apologized for his role in Jeff Malcolm X. I'm like, brother, the minister never said he played a role in the assassination of Malcolm X. He said he spoke words into an atmosphere that had been created.
Right.
And his words could be used. He regretted that his words could be used to fuel the atmosphere that led to Brother Malcolm's assassination. So you're trying your hardest. Because again, you've already let us know you don't want to follow no man. You would rather sit around and read books, smoke weed, get high, talk about Malcolm as your man. But I would say in that state, Malcolm would disown you. See, that's the paradox of the scenario. Many of those that claim an allegiance to Malcolm X would personally disown. He wouldn't have anything to do with you. He was a disciplinarian. If you was in Temple number 7 and you violated the restrictive law, he will put you out. He would discipline you. So you can't claim no allegiance to Malcolm being undisciplined. So the minister said his words were used. But again, his words pale in comparison to the words of some of the others who spoke out against Brother Malcolm. Now, that was a Sunni Muslim who used to write in the final call, under Muhammad speak. He wrote 6 articles against Malcolm. The minister only wrote 4. Because that was the role we played. We were defending the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. It wasn't personal.
That's right.
It wasn't about jealousy or envy.
Get to him. That's good.
Anybody right now can get that same kind of reaction if you go against Minister Farrakhan. And it ain't personal. It just is what it is. We love a man that have given us mental and spiritual life.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We love him dearly. Come on.
So we are not going to sit on our hands and not defend him.
Right.
If you use words, we will defend him with words.
Mm-hmm.
If you try to put your hands on him, we try to put our hands on you.
Right.
See, because the Quran says, fight with those who fight against you. And if they desist, then you desist. It doesn't permit fighting people in a way that is savage and callous.
Right.
But it encouraged the believers to defend the message.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever read the Quran, but as much as the believers loved Muhammad, nobody loved him more than Allah. In the Quran, Allah defends Muhammad.
Heavy, Brother Demetric.
I mean, it's really something to really study. And I didn't really appreciate it until I studied it.
Yes, sir.
But think with me. You can't even become a Muslim without making 2 declarations of faith. It's really not the Shahada, it's really called the Shahadatain. Because it's 2 bearings of witness. You can't just say, I bear witness there's no God except Allah. It ain't enough to say that.
That's right.
You have to also include, I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger.
Yes, sir.
So he makes entry into the religion dependent upon your acknowledgement of Muhammad.
Come on.
They give me this message. Come on.
Then in another place he says, obedience to the messenger is obedience to Allah.
That's right. That's right.
Then when you get into the 68th surah, slanderers were lying on Muhammad. They didn't like his domestic life.
Right.
And Allah says, no, my servant is not a Muslim. Okay, I'll be back on that.
We sound good.
It's all good.
Tech training. Some technical training.
And in another place in the Quran, there were some people that offended Muhammad. And Muhammad decided to forgive them. And Allah said, Muhammad, you might forgive them, but See, so I'm just saying now, it ain't just the believers.
Right.
If you slander, Surah 33, Ayah 69 puts it like this. Be not like those who maligned the prophet Moses. Don't be like them. Because Allah will punish you. Now, what's fascinating, and let me get through this so I can get into domestic life. But Malcolm's brother wrote against him. Other ministers wrote against him. But they only seized upon Minister Farrakhan's words. And the minister said only that Malcolm was worthy of death. But that he wouldn't die because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had faith in Allah for victory over his enemies. Now compare that statement to the statement of Muhammad Ali. He said Malcolm X and anybody who talks about killing the Honorable or attacking Honorable Elijah Muhammad will die. No one can oppose the message of Almighty God verbally or physically and get away with it. He was telling the truth. However, I just put them 2 statements side by side because notice, you never hear that Muhammad Ali said these things about Malcolm X. Reason being is because he was too much of a cash cow. He produced too much money. So people in the sports world could not afford anything negative to be associated with his brand.
Right.
Just before he died,
That's key.
he sold the commercial rights, the branding rights to his name, the name that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave to him for $50 million. And I thought to myself, I said, man, they need to tithe some of that to the nation. They wouldn't have had no Muhammad Ali.
Go ahead! Go ahead!
I'm just saying.
By the way.
But by comparison, this statement is harsher.
Yes, not more tough.
Very much.
More declarative, more definitive.
Don't know.
Woman say, yeah, he's worthy of death, but the message is faithful.
Right.
This one is saying, no, it's going to happen.
He gonna die. Yeah.
You will die. That again lets us know they resurrected Malcolm to oppose the minister.
Right.
They don't give a damn about Malcolm.
No,
They
no.
don't care nothing about his legacy,
no.
what he stood for, what he was trying to fight for. Because while they have resurrected him, they have simultaneously opposed anybody that they thought was like him.
That's right.
I.e. those leaders of black nationalist movements
That's right.
and Islamic movements.
That's right.
They just came out with a report the other day talking about how the FBI is continuing to investigate and infiltrate black movements.
Right.
The same people that has a black leader, a black nationalist leader on a stamp. It would convey, Malcolm's portrait on a stamp would convey then that now black nationalism is all right in America. So this is a false veneration, a false adoration, and a false celebration of Malcolm X.
Right.
Why did he leave the nation? They told you, well, he had an epiphany in Mecca and he met white Muslims.
Right. Epiphany. That's what they said.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, he changed his whole life around.
Well,
Yeah.
if you look into Malcolm's life, he went to the Middle East in 1959.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Man.
He went in the Middle East for the first time in '64. This writer, James Tyler, writes, in 1959, for example, President Nasser invited Elijah Muhammad and his family to make Hajj and visit Egypt as official state guests. However, both the United States FBI and CIA attempted to prevent Elijah Muhammad from receiving a passport. Owing to delays and not wanting to waste this opportunity, Muhammad sent Malcolm X in his place. Malcolm left on July 12, 1959 and visited Egypt. Now remember these countries: Egypt, Iran, Syria, and Ghana. Malcolm, though, is curiously silent in his autobiography regarding the 1959 trip. Likewise, other chroniclers of Malcolm X's life make little reference to this event.
That's good. That's an important piece.
Now, there's a man that wrote an article called "What in the World is a White Muslim?" He said in the International Business Times, Palash Ghosh, "What on earth is a white Muslim?" He said there are in fact tens of millions of Muslims around the world who are white, and no one would bother to call them white Muslims. Consider that 80% of Albanians are Muslim, while large portions of former Yugoslavia also adhere to Islam. Albania and the former Yugoslavia are both, of course, firmly European nations. But let us not confine ourselves to Europe. Countries like Turkey, Syria, Lebanon, and Iran are overwhelmingly Muslim, and their native populations are white. Now, did you notice? Two of the countries he said were predominant white Muslims were countries that Malcolm visited in 1959.
Good point.
But they told you he first learned about white Muslims in 1964 in his Hajj.
Come on.
This is Master Farrah Muhammad.
That's what it is.
Now, in the movie, Malcolm has a vision.
Yeah.
You see Elijah Muhammad descend and sit on Malcolm's bed.
Yoda. Yeah.
Never happened like that.
No.
You read Malcolm's autobiography,
Yeah. Yes.
his actual vision was of this man.
Right.
He didn't know who he was at the time.
That's right.
He would later go to the home of Elijah Muhammad and see a picture of him on the wall. He said, "That's the man that visited me when I was in prison. He's having a vision."
Go ahead, man. Yoda.
Well, this man's mother is white.
That's right.
She comes from a region of the world of many white Muslims and white Christians. Malcolm knew this. We have in the book, I don't think I put it in presentation, but I have in this book a quote from Imam Warathuddin Muhammad. He said Malcolm really was pulling everybody's leg because he and I had both had dinner at my father's home with Muslims who were white.
Yes, sir.
This was published in the 50s. Now, Elijah Muhammad wrote it in the Pittsburgh Courier. We have thousands of darker people joining Islam all over the earth, but a very few whites accept Islam. I was written in the Pittsburgh Courier. Now, Elijah Muhammad wrote in the Pittsburgh Courier from 1956 through 1959. And it was the first publication that the members of the Nation of Islam sold on street corners.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Pittsburgh Courier.
The Pittsburgh Courier, part of what they call the historic Negro Press. And our Elijah Muhammad had a little skinny column in there. But the Muslims was like, we want the world to hear what I was.
Go ahead.
Wasn't nothing else in the paper about us.
Right.
That one little skinny column.
It was powerful.
And Allah blessed us to compile them and put them in a book form that you see right there.
That's right.
And I was so happy that when I went into, the minister took me in his office one day. He said, "Brother, I want to show you something." So we went over to his desk and he had my books on his desk. He said, "Brother, I keep these close to me." So I was really very honored. That book series, he explained to me, comprises his basic training in ministry.
Right.
So I refer to it as the seminary of Louis Farrakhan. He talked to me, and we write about it in an introduction, about his process of developing his lectures and how he would read every word of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the Pittsburgh Courier, because this article series predates Message to the Black.
Yeah, right.
Predates all of the books that you can order now in the Muhammad Speaks a Final Call newspaper, but they didn't have those in the 50s. And so the Muslims fed on the words of the message. The only point I'm making is, if this is published in the 50s, how is Malcolm first learning that white people can be Muslims in 1964?
Lies,
This is the former editor, John Woodford of Muhammad Speaks. And he's talking about he had a white wife. And about how, people thought Dr. Elijah Muhammad hated white people, but Dr. Elijah Muhammad, there was nuance in his teaching on the Caucasian. And how he respected Caucasian people who were Muslims. And so he's talking about the dinner that he had, and the messenger was asking him about his wife, because the messenger had heard his wife was white, which, is something of a paradoxical situation for Mr. Woodford, because the back page of Muhammad Speaks says we believe in race, we believe race mixing should be prohibited. So as the editor, you got to publish that each week. So, but he says that my wife's father is of Irish ancestry and her mother Bulgarian, although her mother's father migrated from Bulgaria. And he said the messenger told him, those are Asiatic peoples, brother. He said many of the people in Bulgaria and Albania are Muslims and followers of Allah as we are.
That's right.
Ooh, that's heavy. Love it. Love it, man.
So, and we go on. I mean, I see as a while, a few white people are Muslims by faith. Now I want to just touch on the domestic life. Because you and I was told Malcolm left the nation because Elijah Muhammad had given birth to children by his teenage secretary. First of all, the problem with that is that Malcolm left the Nation of Islam to go follow Sunni Orthodox Islam. where Prophet Muhammad is known to have had anywhere from 9 to 11, some say 13 wives.
Right.
Aisha was the youngest one in the classical seerah, which is the life of the prophet type of literature.
Right.
Much of the classical seerah says Aisha was 6 when she was betrothed to marry Prophet Muhammad.
Right.
That's what many of the classical traditions say. Other Muslim apologists have gone and redid calculations and said, well, no, she was a teenager.
Right.
Well, you got 2 problems here.
Teach.
If she was 6, then Malcolm left a quote-unquote dirty old man to go follow a much dirtier old man. But if you defend Aisha's age and say she was a teenager, then Malcolm left a man who had a teenage wife for another man who had a teenage wife. So there's a problem in the rationale if we believe that this is the reason why Malcolm left the nation, and it was not. Christians, don't be trying to turn your nose up at polygamy, Christians.
Right.
Because your Bible shows you all of the major prophets of God.
Teach,
They
brother.
have more than one wife. Abraham, the father of the righteous, he had wives.
Right.
And the scriptures say he put one out to fend for herself.
Wow.
Wait a minute now. Abraham and deadbeat dad? Would they have called DCS on Abraham? Abraham, where you work at? Because we're about to put you on child support.
Right.
You can't be doing this kind of stuff.
Right. They're gonna monitor you.
As Abraham, the father of the righteous. All of the prophets of God say they followed the religion of Abraham. He was an upright man.
That's right.
Caleb, of Joshua and Caleb, of the Joshua generation, those who conquered the promised land. His wives.
Right.
David, a man after God's own heart.
That's what it said.
He had wives.
18.
Right.
Then they said of David that he killed a man just to be with the man's wife.
Yeah. Send him into the war. Yeah.
That's the Bible now. Don't be mad at me. I'm just telling you what the Bible
That's
says.
what the book says. Right.
Read that.
Moses had wives. Jacob had wives.
Come on, Chris.
Solomon, they can't even put a number on
No.
Solomon.
Yeah, concubine. Yeah, the whole.
But
Heroin.
Solomon is David's son.
Watchman.
Jesus is described in the New Testament. He is the bright and the morning star, the root of David out of the house of Jesse.
That's right.
In other words, these polygamous prophets are in the ancestral lineage of Jesus.
Jesus.
Listen.
As Billy Graham on polygamy, I gotta take that quote out because they said Billy Graham didn't really say that. So the next iteration of his presentation is not out, so I'm not gonna read it.
Yes, sir.
But the point is, whoever did say it was talking about how the Christian world can't be acting like polygamy is some sin. Now, in the interest of time, I'm not going to play these video clips. But I would just tell you, go to YouTube and put in 1993 Savior's Day, the wives of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad speak. And you can hear them speak for themselves.
That's right.
And talk about their relationship with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And when we did some research, we found out that none of them were underage.
That's 20.
The youngest one, Mother Tanetta Muhammad, was 19, legally an adult. The two that Malcolm was trying to get to file a paternity suit, Lucia Rosary Kareem Muhammad and Evelyn Muhammad, were born in 1934. Lucia was born in 1930, which in 1960 she would have been 30 years of age. Mother Evelyn, when I have it in my other notes of when she had her first child, she was in her late 20s, early 30s when she became a wife of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So it was no teenage sex. And Malcolm knew this because if you looked into it, you knew that Malcolm had been courting Sister Evelyn. They both had roots in Boston. So if Mr. Muhammad, if Evelyn was a teenage wife of Mr. Muhammad then, Was Malcolm trying to make her his teenage wife? Now, again, you may not agree with polygamy. I'm just giving you the facts of the information that it was no man that was trying to take away and abuse young girls. Because in a wicked social media post, Dream Hampton, who put out the documentary on R. Kelly,
Come on.
put out a tweet saying that Malcolm X died trying to protect underage girls from a sexual predator. And this is the morphing of the teenage secretary's mythology for a modern audience to try to now drag the messenger of Allah down with other men from the entertainment industry who actually are guilty of the sexual abuse of women and girls. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad's record is replete that he was a liberator and a champion of the rights and the protection of women. And when he came to a point in his life when Allah caused him to take on wives, he's not viewing this through the eyes of a man looking for lust or to satisfy lascivious desire.
Right.
If he did that, he never would have had children. Just like in the black community now, we're a community, we like to have sex, but we don't want to have no children.
That's right.
Because they have promoted contraception, abortion, and all of these ideas and trends among us that teach us children are a burden and not a blessing. But the wise understand that if you hope or have any kind of hope of having eternal life, it is through your seed and your offspring. Sex ain't sex. There's a reason why it is called human reproduction. Question: which human are you reproducing? Why is there a need for you to reproduce yourself? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad has taught us this body, if we care for it,
Come on now.
in the optimum way,
At least
the most you can get is 1,000.
Wow.
Sometimes you're born with an idea that in order for you to fulfill or complete the idea, you would need more time on the earth. The fulfillment of your idea, your dream, you won't be around long enough. So how do gods have eternal life? You ever went outside in the summertime and you see a wasp flying on your windowsill? They have wasps in Florida?
Yes.
Bees in Florida?
All kind of bugs in Florida. Bug capital of the world. Yeah.
Now, have you ever paused to reflect that bee or that wasp that you see this summer is not the same one that was there last summer? But he looked just like him. He's doing the same thing that the bee did last summer. You don't know the difference. Because the bee reproduced himself. So it looked like the same bee over and over again. He looked the same. He got the same mind.
Yes, sir.
He do the same work. He got the same spirit. Because that is the way that you extend your life. You reproduce yourself. And so the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that was the original purpose for the creation of woman. To be able to reproduce God. Because he understood that his plan for the perfection of his universe would take more than 1,000 years. But if he could get another body and put his same mind in that body, then he would move on down the line of time until his work would be complete. So wise people understand the value of children. Mr. Muhammad is the wisest of men. And he understood that if he's Allah's messenger, then he knew at certain points, certain things in his life indicated to him that what God had ordained, as the Quran said, "O Muhammad, we have made thy wife lawful to thee." So you can judge him, but now you have to judge him based upon the mores of your secular thinking in mind. He didn't have that kind of thinking in mind.
That's right.
He's a man that's reading the scriptures, seeing how he must move in order to do the work that God laid on his shoulder.
All praise to the Lord.
Just giving you the
That's
fact.
right. Yeah.
Why did Malcolm say in his Declaration of Independence, "I'm still a follower of Mr. Muhammad"? If he left because of white Muslims or teenage secretaries or Elijah Muhammad jealous of me, FARRAKHAN jealous of me. This is his published statement. It's carried in the New Amsterdam News as well as the Pittsburgh Courier. He said, "I've reached the conclusion that I can best spread Mr. Muhammad's message by staying out of the Nation of Islam." He says, "I will always remain a Muslim and will always teach what Mr. Muhammad taught me." Do you know? A lot of the writers try to say that, well, Malcolm was so ambitious, he was going to take the plight of black people and present it at the United Nations. And that's why their government killed him. Well, do you know that according to Minister James 7X Najee, who was a part of the ministry class of Temple No. 7, once after Malcolm had came back from a visit with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm told the ministry class that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had planned to take the plight in the case of the so-called American Negro before the United Nations. So again, he said he was leaving to continue Mr. Muhammad's work. His ideas about international affairs, his love of Africa, his visits to the Muslim world, these were born out of his understanding given to him by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Beautiful.
See, I want to just make it clear.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are brother.
Malcolm's international focus wasn't something that he just took upon himself to do. I can show you the old publications from the Nation of Islam. And the Nation of Islam had in the publication a statistic that showed that we encourage our people, the so-called American Negroes, to become Muslims. 1 out of every 4 human beings on the planet is a Muslim.
That's right.
And a Muslim is the brother and the sister of every other Muslim. In other words, when we join the Nation of Islam, we automatically take on international relevance.
Wow. Go ahead, brother.
So, international interest and concern, that wasn't a new development from Malcolm. It was part and parcel to his membership in the Nation of Islam. We get our student enrollment, and I actual fact, my beautiful brother was telling us he's writing his Savior's letter.
Right.
Like Malcolm wrote his Savior's letter. We all wrote our Savior's letter. All praise be to Allah.
That's true.
When they give him his student enrollment, Minister Chad he'll see, wow, this is talking about not just what's going on in America, but what's going on in the world. What is the population of the original nation in the wilderness of North America and all over the planet Earth? So when we come in a nation, we automatically have an open mind.
Your mind is expanded.
It's really important to appreciate. Again, I'm still a follower of Mr. Muhammad.
This is the one. That's the book.
This includes an excerpt, and I'm not going to spend the time to play it. You can go to YouTube and see when the FBI was trying to recruit Malcolm to be a spy against the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That's very, very important because it shows how they wanted to use Malcolm once they separated Malcolm from the message. And to Malcolm's credit, he held firm.
Right. Yeah, come on now.
So
You can listen to it on YouTube. You can also listen to an apology Malcolm made. He was apologizing. He wanted to come back.
That's right. That's right.
Even his right-hand man, a brother named James 67X, also called Abdul Razak. He said, I believe, this is what he said. He said, I believe that if Mr. Muhammad called Malcolm at the end, then Malcolm would have went back. What does that tell you? This man is a close, intimate friend. Ride or die. He said, from what I know of Malcolm, behind the scenes, if Mr. Muhammad called him and said, Malcolm, look, let's cut this couple, you come on back. He said Malcolm would have came back.
Exactly. If you would have lived.
Since he's a Muslim, his political philosophy is black nationalism. So these points are relevant to show that even though Malcolm was physically separated from the nation, he was not really ideologically separated from the nation. Very important. Because as they were listening to Malcolm's speeches, I mean, I can show you some articles where they were writing, they felt that when Malcolm left the nation, he turned up against the white man in the Jewish community. That's how they felt.
Right.
It was almost kind of like similar to how it happened with Dr. Khaled. You know, that his membership in the nation was bridling him. He really want to get at these people, but Elijah's holding it back.
Come on, man.
So when Elijah was holding it back more, they noticed it. Said, man, he's really turning up against him.
That's right.
Last couple slides. He said to Alex Haley, just before his death, my death is bigger than the nation. What does that mean? I can't wait to get this book out because
Yes.
a lot of powerful stuff is not in here. It'll be there. That really will explode that. But this here will explode what most of us think. Everybody in the inner circle. And I'm saying this now for those who like to try to look and call themselves research. There's a such thing as primary sources.
That's right.
So in other words, in this incident, the best person that we could talk to would be Malcolm. He would be the primary source.
That's right.
He's not here. But next best would be those who are closest to him. Not intellectual professors, this right or that right or whatever. No, you want to get to the root when you do your research. And you come to see that the people in Malcolm's immediate circle are in agreement that it was not the Nation of Islam who killed Malcolm. This is his sister who said Malcolm told her, this is Ella Collins, his big sister, the real estate developer, and helped finance a lot of Malcolm's projects, financed his Hajj to Mecca. Ella Collins said Malcolm told her, if I died, the CIA will be the one that did it. Not the black Muslims, the CIA. There's Brother Razak. He said the NOI didn't kill Malcolm. He was easy to kill. They could have just sat in a car and waited for him to come home, he said. Then he asked the question, who refused to let him land in France? We're going to talk about that in a minute. Good stuff, good stuff. Then his personal secretary, Miss Sarah Mitchell. They don't talk to you a lot about her because she, for years, maintained that the day that Malcolm was assassinated, he was prepared to exonerate the Muslims. He was going to state that day, I was wrong for saying the Muslims are out to kill me. And part of his rationale was the things that happened to him when he was abroad. He knew that that wasn't the nation.
Come on now.
And we will argue that just as he was going to exonerate the nation, he was also going to point the finger in another direction.
That's right. That's right.
And we were blessed, maybe a year or so before she passed away, to go and sit with Miss Mitchell, fascinating sister, who wrote a little small book called Shepherd of the Black Sheep about her relationship with Brother Malcolm and how Malcolm was getting ready to say some things with respect to the Muslims not being the ones responsible for his death. His philosophy was evolving almost on a weekly basis, she said. On February 20th, 1964, let's just say 65, the eve of his assassination, Malcolm told aides that he should not have criticized Elijah Muhammad, leader of the NOI, Mitchell said. Malcolm had severed ties with the Muslim sect and had accused it publicly of the recent bombing of his house. He said now anyone could kill him and everyone would blame the Muslim, Mitchell said. He said, and quote, "We've been set up and they succeeded." Malcolm X planned to recant his criticism of Muhammad at the Harlem rally that afternoon, Mitchell said. He was gunned down before he could do so. She disputes a widely held belief that angry Muslims were behind the assassination. Now this is his secretary. Why is that important? Because Malcolm had made Elijah Muhammad's secretaries an issue. Well, nobody want to talk about what did Malcolm's secretaries, what's up with them? You don't want to talk about that because both James 67X, who was the secretary, and Miss Sarah Mitchell, who was the secretary, both offered testimony that exonerate the nation as being responsible for killing a man they worked with personally, knew, and loved.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That's right.
And both of them were afraid that whoever killed Malcolm, whoever was powerful enough to kill Malcolm, might do them harm. So they both left the country. Several of Malcolm's in the circle, they left the country. Miss Mitchell went to India for several years. Brother James 67X, I think he was either Guinea or Ghana. And it was years before they came back.
Wow.
That's enough for y'all.
Well fed, well fed.
You may have a question or two, and with Brother Chad's permission, I'll take a few questions. I know we're a little over the time, but if you all are comfortable, I'm comfortable. I'm here to serve. So if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand, and we'll do our best to respond. If we don't know, we'll tell you we don't know.
And family, for the sake of time, if it's a question, please ask the question. Let's not give lectures or comments and our viewpoint. I think he fared us well.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Any questions?
Yes, sir, my brother.
Thank you, Brother Jamaica, for sharing.
Thank you, brother, for being here.
My question for you is that there was three individuals that were arrested. Two of them were exonerated and found innocent. The brother that went to jail, was he from Temple Number 7? And was there any other individuals involved from the newer Temple? I believe it was number 25. Was there any other involvement other than the brother who went to jail for those 26 years?
Well, we don't really know. They were alleged members of the temple in Newark. Talmadge Hare has described them as being part of the temple in Newark, but it's hard to know because when is an agent or an informant not an agent and informant and a member of the organization he's infiltrating? And when is he a member and not an agent or informant? See, so the people who don't like the nation, they would emphatically say, yeah, they was a part of Temple Number 25. Since they're not here to say whether they were or not, we can't know.
Right.
Because if they said that they were, then we would have to then probe them to say, when did you become a member? And were you an agent, an informer? Were you sent in? Did you infiltrate? See, because now it's like you're playing this double agent because you were sent in, but even though you were sent in and you're working for some other groups, yeah, you're on a membership roster. You know, they give you money to pay charity and pay dues and buy Muhammad speaks, and you go through the motions. So yeah, you're a member, but are you really? We don't know, because again, as the fact I maintained is, these are not, that kind of thing is not cut and dry. When you have this huge parent organization in government called the FBI that devoted most of its counterintelligence resources to the destruction of the nation, more so than any other group.
Right.
The fact about it, for all of the hyperbole about America being involved in a Cold War with Russia for most of the 20th century, you come to find out the FBI at one point had more members of the Nation of Islam than the American Communist Party under surveillance.
Wow.
Yet America was supposed, Russia, I'm sorry, was supposed to be our #1 enemy. But the FBI felt that the Nation of Islam was more of an enemy to America than was the Soviet Union. See, so in that book I showed you, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, there's a quote in there where he said, he lamented the fact that they have sent in among us so many persons of rotten character. And you find this in the history of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. The Quraysh and his enemies, at a certain point, they dispatched people to join the Muslims. They weren't really believers. They were sent in by the Quraysh, such that at a certain point, the Quraysh leaders would give a command, and all those whom they had sent in would leave, and it would appear that Prophet Muhammad was losing membership, that he was a failure, because those that they sent in, they look like Muslims, they get a greeting, doing everything, you think they for real. But these are people that have been sent in. So you can't, that's the question. When is the person that's been sent in a real member of the organization, or when is that person working for those that sent them in? It's a hard question to answer. So I for one, I don't go all the way with those who are part of the newer temple. I don't go into that because I've looked into this too carefully to see that in the case where you have the government sending in people with the purpose of destroying an organization, how is that person, even if they go through all of the membership requirements, a real member? Because if I'm a member, I'm working to help my organization. I'm working to build it, strengthen it. And if it's got weaknesses, as all nations do, we ain't perfect. But if I'm a believer and I'm a real member, I'm trying to help fix it. I'm plugging the leaks, I'm patching the holes, I'm fixing. Because I love my nation. So I can't say that for certain, even though some writers would.
Yes, sir. Question. The religion of Islam and the Nation of Islam, I never studied it, and I don't know the answer. Are they opposing bodies of religion, or Islam religion and nation? What is there such a separate distinction?
Well, it's kind of like, I'll put it like this. In Christianity, there are different denominations.
Right.
Same way in Islam.
Okay.
You have different what they call schools of thought, or madhabs in Arabic, or tariqas, and they are different communities. They are like sects. And so the major two sects in terms of the global presence of Islam, you would have as the Shias and the Sunnis. And most people who know something about Islam know something about them. But you have many, many, many other communities, like the Sufis, like the Hanafis, Hanbalis, the Druze, the Tijanis. You have many different communities of Muslims. And of course, the most popular group in America is the Nation of Islam, especially in the black community. There are elements of our theology and our interpretation of the Quran that differs with some of those other communities. But we are in unison on the fundamental principles and pillars of Islam.
Okay, got it.
So just like, again, an analogy would be in the church, you know. And so the Quran says, you know, vie or compete with one another, not in doctrine or argument, but in righteous competition. So unfortunately, the Muslim world really needs a revival, because in a lot of places in the Middle East, competing groups of Muslims, they're not following the Quranic injunction to compete in the doing of righteousness. They are at such odds with each other that they are doing harm to one another.
Extremism.
See, in the viewpoint of God, see, he say in the judgment, he'll tell us who's right and who's wrong. He say in the meantime, no, compete with each other in righteousness. In other words, if I'm in a nation and you're a Sunni, say, well, we're gonna feed 500 homeless today. And you say, well, we're gonna feed 600. I said, well, we're gonna mentor 100 young men. You said, well, we're gonna mentor 150. See, so now look at what's happening. Even though we are at difference, we are manifesting or proving that we are superior by doing good.
Right.
Not by arguing, them niggas ain't nothing, then they said, these niggas ain't nothing.
Right.
So Allah has given us a way to permit difference in disagreement such that it's not harmful.
Oh, beautiful, brother.
But then he said, I'm going to decide. I'll tell you in the judgment who really right and who really wrong.
Ooh, that's deep. Come on.
But even if you have the wrong belief, and I have to emphasize this, even if you have the wrong belief, if you do righteousness, if you do good, that absolves maybe your misunderstanding on certain religious aspects or theological.
That was good. Good question.
Yes, sir, my brother.
Listen to you. As vigilant as Brother Malcolm was in his civil rights exploits, how do you think he would view our community state today? Do you think that he would be pleased with where we've progressed? Do you think that he would, what do you think he would say to us now?
I think he would probably say, go and help Minister Farrakhan. I mean, if I can be candid, you know what I mean? But I think that, you know, he would continue to be doing the work that he always did, you know, in as modern a way possible. You know, he certainly could be one to point to how the conditions prevalent in our community are directly tied to the phase of integration.
Right.
He could show that, because now you have many people who are raising that question. That question is being quietly raised. See, because even under segregation, which mind you, is not separation. It's not the separation that the Nation of Islam has ever advocated. Because segregation is an imposed form of separation where the superior says, I don't want the inferior near me, be banished. Separation is when two people who are equals say, we can't get along in peace, to you be your way and to us be ours. But even under the history of segregation, we prospered. That's right. We had contiguous communities where we had businesses, institutions, you know, we had nuclear families. In the hood, the impoverished black family lived next door to the professional black family. So now that means the poor man's children can look at his neighbor as an example. Well, after integration, the professional blacks moved out. They didn't want to be the neighbors, or maybe it wasn't that they didn't want to be the neighbors, but they went where their money could afford to take them. So our communities were robbed of talent, robbed of economic resources, and as a result, the hood has become just that. When we use that term hood, we're not using neighborhood. A hood is a place where the neighbor aspect has been removed. And it's just a hood like a covering for darkness. So I think Malcolm would decry emphatically the failures of integration and be like, can't you see Black America? That Elijah Muhammad was right all along? There's nothing wrong with saying, you know, we can't get along. You know, you go your way and we go out. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Because no self-respecting person desires to impose or force themselves on somebody proving they don't want you.
Right.
And what is it? I mean, I mentioned earlier, I don't know if you were here, but I was just reading, I think we looked at it at the dinner table, Brother James, last night. The article, this is in 2019, saying a leading, not the leading, a leading cause of death for Black males in this country is police brutality. This is 30, 40, 50 years after integration. Well, I mean, you know, how could, should not we kind of like reevaluate something?
That's right.
So I think Malcolm would be really championing the contrast in the results of integration versus the potential of separation. Because if segregation, if we were doing good in segregation, better than we are in integration, then we would really flourish in separation.
Go ahead. Now. Tweet for us.
Yes, sir.
Oh, Brother Minister, I just wanted to introduce you to our brother. This is Pastor R.J. Stevenson.
I thought he looked familiar. I saw him on the show.
Right, he's on our show, and he's our engineer, not our engineer, but he serves in that capacity. Powerful young preacher. I had the blessing to go and hear him preach a few weeks ago. Had the crowd off on their feet.
Awesome.
Very powerful.
Beautiful.
But I wanted you to meet him personally.
I'm honored to meet you.
We owe him a debt of gratitude.
That's right.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
Yes.
Where can we go to find more information on the COINTELPRO, kind of hidden documents like that you wouldn't normally see, like on the front page of Google and such? And how do you know that it's a good source of information to use?
It's a good question. I'm really, number one, not a fan of the FBI papers. Because from the start, they are problematic sources. Why would you go to the enemy of a man expecting to find the truth about that man?
Come on.
And this is what a lot of writers, especially Carl Evans, if you're familiar with the Malcolm subject, Carl Evans has written several books about it, Judas Factor, other books about it. And you see an over-dependence on FBI documentation. Again, people who already have a bias against the subject under investigation. So since they already are approaching their work with this bias, you know, the work then is suspect in terms of being able to assess the complete truth. Secondly, what they have made available has been heavily redacted. Redactions are when you see a document and you see whole paragraphs blocked out, you see the names of various individuals blocked out. So I really, brother, I wouldn't waste my time a whole lot sifting through really what is like, you read it, it's like, what the hell is this? Because if there's something salient, the person who did it name gonna be blacked out. And so then you're left to speculate. You're left to guess. And that's what most writers do when they write about us. You know, like Carl Evans and some people try to show some FBI file where they say the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was on the telephone with somebody saying these hypocrites, we need to cut their heads off. You know, and it doesn't tell you who he was talking to. You know, it doesn't tell you, you know, a whole lot of stuff that you would want to know. But they speculate that this was an oblique order to kill Malcolm. Nothing could be further from the truth.
That's right.
Because Elijah Muhammad, now remember, this is the man that stood up for years calling a white man the devil in public. And he issued public condemnations of the powerful, the rich. He's not a man that's ever been shy about his belief and his conviction. But he publicly told his followers, leave Malcolm alone. He wouldn't tell his followers to leave Malcolm alone and then privately say, kill him. Right. That's not Elijah Muhammad. See, again, because as we already taught, Elijah Muhammad had already experienced defections. He had experienced this in his blood family. Right. His own brother Khalat, who was the supreme captain under Master Farrakhan Muhammad in the 30s, disagreed with Master Farrakhan Muhammad's choice of him. See, because in the early ministry class, there were people who are articulate, you know, who they felt that could deliver the word better. Right. And they didn't think Elijah Muhammad was as gifted as a speaker as some of these other ministers were. But it was the teacher of them all who said, no, Elijah, hear him. He's my choice. Yeah, you mind if I choose? I'm choosing him. Well, now you have to rearrange your thinking, because you think that Elijah's at the back of the class. And the teacher put Elijah at the head of the class, meaning you now have to submit to him, take orders from him. So he had dealt with internal Nation of Islam issues since the start. He wasn't rattled by that. He was not moved to retaliate against that. And he's talked about how even when his confrontations with his enemies, Allah took care of them. The Muslims fought against the police in a courtroom in Chicago in the 30s, and a police captain died. And the Muslims don't carry no weapons. So what this had done for Elijah Muhammad and the believers was, it bolstered their faith. That even if Malcolm is our enemy, or whoever is our enemy, Allah got them. Allah gonna take care of them. We don't have to deal with that. Protection. So you get into the file. There's interesting stuff. I have seen how in this issue, it's like, man, I read the FBI file. And I'm like, you sifted through garbage, huh? Because what you really want to know, and that's the reason why you've heard the minister say, open the file.
That's right.
Because even what's been released isn't all of what they have. And what they have released, again, is not put in a form for you. They did that begrudgingly because of this thing called the Freedom of Information Act. So it's kind of like, you know, you force somebody to give you something, and they say, here. Sorry about that. Just for dramatic. You're like, man, what is this? Well, they said I had to give it to you, so here I'm giving it to you. That's what it is. And so there are many other sources that are very good. But, you know, an over-dependence on what's in the files of a group that had its stated purpose was to destroy all black groups and to inhibit any activity toward black unity. I mean, I read through some of it sometimes, brother. If there's a point I'm trying to make, or there's a quote I want that shows them to be acting as they have always acted, but I'm not going in there looking to find the truth about Elijah Muhammad or Malcolm X. I mean, just take for instance, they used to refer to us in the files as something called MCI, the Muslim Cult of Islam.
Right.
Now we never referred to ourselves.
That's right.
Never. So now you got all of these various. I mean, it's just, you know, a cesspool. And I finally found out you literally have to take like a little course. You know, you had to read through all these procedures to teach you how to read the file. You know, because there's numbers here, letters here, strike throughs here. All that stuff means something.
That's right.
You know, so you know, I just, pardon me, I just wouldn't spend a lot of time there. Hopefully, if it is the will of Allah and we're able to get this done and you get a copy of it, there are a lot of, I mean, we have almost like 200 sources now, probably going to be maybe 300 sources, you know, where we show you where the information comes from. And then if you want to do further research into it, you're welcome, you know, to have that as a starting point. And it will be, as they say, stable data of information, you know, something that you can trust that came from someone that, you know, is looked into this and using credible sources.
Right.
So you can follow that.
Move forward. That's right.
Any other questions, comments? Or comments from the sisters? I'll take that.
Were you permitted to one question only, or?
No, you can ask another question.
Okay, now, a comment first, if I may.
Sure.
The FBI files, I never read them, but I'm quite certain there's nothing in there probably that speaks upon the goodness coming out of the mouth of Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X. They taught unity, love, peace. There's probably nothing in those files that, if, you know, documents or says anything about that. Right. I'm just thinking about, that's just a thought, comment. Now, my other question is that this is what has intrigued me. Malcolm X, MLK Jr., Farrakhan, they speak with conviction, boldness. They've heard from God. That's what I'm going to say, because, and the stuff that has come out of their mouths is like, okay, that can't just be a regular person. Right. So, but anyway, my question, the movie Malcolm X in 1992, there was a scene in which, I guess, you know, Malcolm Little, his prior life, what he did, you know, read, all that, and his transformation, I think it was like he saw a vision, there was someone, brother in prison that taught him, or he learned. So, let me get right to the point. Does the movie depict the true transformation from Malcolm Little, his beliefs, to his journey towards being a spokesperson, a minister for the nation?
No, I don't think you were in here when we dealt with that. We did deal with the movie. We showed how Spike Lee did a cost-saving measure in creating a character called Baines, who was part Reginald, Malcolm's brother, who actually introduced him to Islam, because Malcolm's blood brothers and sisters, his family became Muslims before he did, and they fished him in. He didn't get Islam from another inmate, you know. He got it from his brothers and sisters. His brother Wilfred was the minister in Detroit. His brother Filbert was the minister of Lansing, Muskegon, Grand Rapids, in some other city in Michigan. His brother Reginald was a part of the nation. His sister Ella was a part of the nation. He had another sister, I forget her name. She was also a part of the nation. And so Spike only got $32 million from Warner Brothers. It cost him $60 million. So he had to borrow it from like Bill Cosby, Oprah, Michael Jordan to get like $18 million to finish it. But he still had to do, because his vision for it was, you know, this epic, you know, I mean, that movie was 3 hours.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so he had to do some cost saving. He talked about it in some of the slides we showed earlier. So that brother is partially Reginald. He's partially an inmate called Bembry. that Malcolm talks about in his autobiography, who was an inmate that he admired because he was so studious, but he wasn't a Muslim. And then he was also partially Minister James Shabazz, because if you remember, by the time Malcolm is the minister in New York in the movie, Baines is also a minister.
Yeah.
You know, so that was the aspects of who that was James Shabazz, the minister of Newark. And then so you know, again, that's the reason why we reiterated this mantra: don't get your history from your entertainment.
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean? Because we have been so dumbed down as a people. You know, we don't want to read and find out the truth.
Right.
We like, man, give me a movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Give me Netflix. Yeah. Give me Netflix.
Yeah. Yes, sir, brother.
I came because I wanted it. What I knew about Malcolm X was the spike. So I wanted to find out for myself how different it is because I was hungry. Nothing except I was hungry.
Great.
Brother, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming, brother. Thanks. Any other questions?
Books.
Where are your books
Yeah,
at?
the one
Where are they?
Got something. We have
Take
them
them
in
out of
our
that
room.
suitcase and put them up wherever they need to go.
Praise be to
We
Allah.
hope that you will support us
Right.
while we're here about a couple books.
Let's give it up again for our dear brothers and sisters. Family, our dear brother do have books. Like I said, he's an author of like 10 books. And he has some on hand. Well, we can purchase those books out today. We're always taught it's best to shop with your brother before you shop with another. So we already got a glance of his mind and the research that goes into his study as far as how he's presenting. So he has some of the books that we talked about today that he talked about in his slides. So you can get a chance as far as to purchase the book today, and God willing, he can also sign it for you. Also, I want to tell everybody that he will be speaking again tomorrow. He will be here tomorrow speaking on a subject that's titled Love, Power, and Self-Discipline. So we will be in Suite 24, right on this compound at the end. We want to invite everyone, please come out tomorrow to hear part 2. Double feature. So he went in today about then y'all kill Malcolm. He'll be speaking tomorrow on love, power, and self-discipline. The 3 elements of the Spirit of Allah God. And this is going to be at 11 a.m. tomorrow, Sunday. So please, we welcome everyone. Please come out again to hear from our dear brother. Okay?
Yes, sir.
I pray that everyone enjoyed himself. I know we was thoroughly fed information.
Yes, sir.
Right? We can look forward that he is putting together a book of all the research that they have been doing, compiling this about the death of Malcolm, and it's the Nation of Islam involved and those that is involved, and it will be based upon documentation, information, and he would give us a thorough understanding about it. And this was just a preview of that was coming forth by Allah's grace. All right, family. With that being said, we also do have the latest edition of our Final Call newspaper. If you'd like to purchase that, we do have that on deck. We do have the world famous bean pie that Muslims are known for. So if you want to take your little sweet to eat, after you got the spiritual food, you can take some physical food out with you. So we do have that. So family, before we dismiss and be able to go over to our dear brother to be able to get the book and the book signed, if we would, we'd like to start every meeting, open it in prayer and close out with prayer. So if you wouldn't mind standing. Praying whatever members you feel comfortable with praying. We pray with our heads slightly bowed, eyes closed to the wickedness of this world. We extend our hands out to receive the blessing from Almighty God. Prayer time. Repeat after me in silence. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. All praise belongs to you, Allah, the Lord of the world, the Beneficent, the Merciful, the Master of the Day of Judgment. Thee alone do we worship, and our aid we beseech for him. Guide us on the right path, the path of those upon whom thou hast stored thy grace, not the path of those who earn thy anger, nor of those who have gone astray. Amen. All right, that's what I'm going to leave family. Include our Facebook Live.